Well, g'day. Welcome to my channel. Ross Thatcher here, occasionally known as Flat Earth Aussie Jesus. A joke name, really. Just thought I'd pop by and respond to a few responses. So, not here to gain views or anything like that. I'm here to answer a few queries. A few of my posts that I've responded to on this For the Flat Earth channel been pinned by Mr. Craig McNeil, the owner of the channel, owner-operator. And there's like I've got like 374, I think, responses at the moment. Far too many to go through them all. I might scroll through some, but I think what's more important is I just sort of focus on my own channel. And my most recent video, I did have a response here from a person that calls themselves Captain Eli. Now, I don't know what it is with people who call themselves globers or globe defenders or the flat earthers. They tend to be very, what shall we say, not capable of operating under their real names. They always go under an anonymous nick deal. So I'm not going to hold that against you, Captain Eli. Captain. So because I'm working on my theory of the Thatcher's law of perspective, which I've basically shown the basics of many times, first comment he says, he's written quite a long one, so I'll have to address these one bit at a time. So is it your law of perspective, Thatcher's? Yes, it is. It's my observation, which I've just named something so that I can explain it to people, to make the most simple explanation of how we explain it to, say, young children or adults who haven't got a clue about perspective and think they do because they've done an art class or something, and they think that tells them everything they need to know about perspective, that you've got a vanishing point and everything goes into it, into infinity, whereas that's not the case. The case is the Earth is a lot bigger than we understand, and while we ordinarily wouldn't paint anything more than what we can easily see, we have to understand that there's a law of perspective that has this limitation point, which I easily shown with that little hand signal thing I did. And for those knocking me for having a beer, please don't. We all have our ways of getting through the world. That's the only medication I use. I don't use any pharmaceuticals or illegal drugs. So my homemade beer is my medicine, and it helps calm my nerves. I've never been a public speaker. I've always been a writer and a reader, and doing this alone is a huge step for me to be speaking publicly. So Captain Eli continues, if it were an actual law, I would get more results from Googling Thatcher's law of perspective instead of just your videos. None of the other results in the first 6 pages were relevant at all. Hey, I thought I'd click that so that the messages would show. Did I get some real food into you yet, Ross? Yes, mate. I've been getting plenty of delicious. Say live chat, yeah. They still seem to disappear pretty fast, though. I'm reading some comments, mate, and responding to them. I've been eating pretty well. I'm not fading away, bro. Have you ever seen a cockatoo without its feathers? G'day, Billy Borbag. Have you ever seen a cockatoo without its feathers? It's nothing but a stick with a beak and big claws and these tiny little wings. And yet that beak could take your finger off. They are powerful, powerful animals, powerful birds. You don't need to have mass in order to be strong and healthy and vital. In fact, the less mass you've got, the better, because basically you're just carrying extra weight. You're burning energy just to carry it around for no reason. You don't need it. So, let me go back to this comment. Going well. So yeah, Okay, so he's Googled Thatcher's Law of Perspective instead of just your videos. None of the other results in the first 6 pages are relevant at all. That's true. It shouldn't be because it's still a new thing. It's only been put here on YouTube. The closest it got on the first 2 pages was Thatcherism, which is something completely different and some sort of marketing thing that's called the Law of Perspective. It has nothing to do with optical science. Well, I wouldn't know about that. I haven't actually looked it up on Google. I just say to look it up on YouTube, where I have tagged some of my videos Thatcher's Law of Perspective. Yes, I'm from the NSS Discord, which is the non sequitur show, because I went on there to say, you know, that yeah, I am the real thing. When I talk about flat Earth, I'm not a troll. I genuinely believe in the stationary planar Earth, and I'm happy to share information with people freely. I'm also the guy who kept asking for a map of the flat Earth and nothing else. I could actually test a map consistently. The most basic test I can think of off the top of my head is, on this map, how would a South Pole work? Okay, well, Captain Eli, we don't need a new map. We don't need to redesign the world. The maps we've got have been working fine for centuries. The South Pole nonsensical idea, there is no South Pole. It's as simple as that. You look at the azimuthal equidistant map. That is... That's cool, mate. The South Pole doesn't exist. The North Pole is the only pole in existence. And that's why all compasses point towards the north, and they'll always point away from it outwards like spokes on a wheel towards the outer rim, which is what we traditionally called Antarctica. Or, you know, we think of the pole as the south because we've always thought of it as the bottom of a sphere, and yet that's never been the case. Sailors have traditionally used compasses and the stars to navigate. And so the compass always points north, so going east or west is going in a circle around the North Pole, and the further away you are from it, the bigger the arc you're going. And so the further south, you're actually going outwards, which is why the bottom of Africa, the only place that they really was known to the world as a southern continent for hundreds and hundreds of years, when they went south, they're going further away from north. They should have just been following the coastline down instead, which would have kept them hugging the coast, but instead they're navigating with charts and compasses, and so they're going further and further away, which is basically westwards away from the African coast, and hence, therefore, the place became known as the Cape of Good Hope, because after all these miles and miles and miles of navigation or sailing, they would then start rounding back up again, thinking they're heading back up to the trade routes of India and, you know, Madagascar along the way, the various places. But what they never factored in is that they're not on a globe. You know, on the globe they thought, well, you going south is just going down around the ball instead of down and out across the plain. And so, of course, in the middle of the night, thinking that they've gone way past Africa, heading back up north again, they run aground. And that's why there's, you know, hundreds, thousands of ships all washed up on the western coast at the bottom of South Africa, because they'd all taken into calculations according to the globe, according to nautical miles, and not realising that nautical miles, the further outward you go, get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the Cape of Good Hope got named because you really needed a lot of good hope to get around it. So the maps basically work by following the coastlines. GPS works by following the coastlines. Ground positioning system, it's all done by towers. It's not done by satellites, and if it is done by satellites, it's ones floating off the bottom of helium balloons or similar. So the maps work just fine. The distances don't necessarily work looking at them on a flat sheet of paper, but hey, that's just how it is. The maps work. Why reinvent the wheel when it already works just fine? So the South Pole doesn't work. There is no South Pole. Everywhere outwards is southwards. Outwards. In reality, you'd go to the South Pole, and if you look up the stars at night and slowly rotate 360 degrees, you would see the same stars rotate around you. Simple enough, right? How would the same thing work on a flat Earth where oftentimes there isn't even a South Pole to begin with? Well, that's right, there isn't a South Pole. I've explained the southern stars multiple times. For one more time, this is how it works. All the stars go around Polaris, which is in the northern centre. It aligns with the magnetic north, where all the compasses point towards. And all the stars, when you turn around and look the other way, they're still traveling the same direction. You're just seeing them go a different direction because you're looking at them the other way. And all the stars in the south move as one body towards the west. That's why when I look out at the Southern Cross early in the evening, it's in the southeast. When I look at it in the morning as it's getting light, it's in the far southwest. But it is now starting to shine over Perth. Well, it's probably way past Perth by that stage, because when things are up really high, you can see them for a lot further, heading towards Africa. And they're still moving as one body. So when it's night time in Africa, now they can see the Southern Cross. And they get to see it all night long as it travels from east to the west. And then by their mornings, it's in the far west, and it's just creeping up over South America, where it's starting to become their night. And they see it in the southeast, where it just keeps continuing, going around and around. Eventually passes them, back to New Zealand, back to us, and it's a 24-hour rotation of the stars, all going around Polaris. So you're right, there is no South Pole. I've seen some pictures of people taking star trails around a so-called southern celestial pole. I personally think they're all faked. This is my personal opinion, and I've got good reason to believe it. I've seen when they do time-lapse videos, all they're really doing is they're putting like a front view of some buildings or something in front of it to make it look like a fixed frontal view, and then they're taking a tiny little time-lapse of about less than a minute of these stars actually making little star circles, and then they just rotate a little bit and replay the same thing again and again to create this illusion of creating circles. But you can see when a shooting star or similar goes across, it's the same one on repeat over and over, just at a different angle. It's like they are falsifying this for whatever reason. They really so strongly want to prove their ball earth that they're willing to fake it. And I mean, that is desperation. That is desperation overload. And they are seriously doing it. You find me any video of southern star celestial rotations actually going in a full circle, they don't exist. They go for a little bit, cut out, little bit, cut out, little bit, cut out. In the north, you can do it because the stars keep going. Big, big circles. So let's go and have a look at the next thing he says. He also said, and I quote from Discord, I said I'm not really a flat earther, as the term is outdated and overused. I'm an infinite planar earther, where Earth is the measurably higher parts of various heights above sea level which does not bend or curve. His question to that is, if there is an infinite plane, where is the North or South Pole? Why are we limiting ourselves to these few continents and islands? There's infinite land out there. Well, that's a fair question. That's a bloody good one, really. And that's exactly what flat Earth is all about. We understand there is a North Pole. That's how maps were made in the first place, when man originated from the far north and found that we could navigate using compasses, magnetic compasses that always point to north. We could use a polar star, so we'd always know our position as we traversed between the continents, which, believe me, I think it goes back way, way longer than our known history. But this is how our current civilization has evolved from great destructive times. We're basically kind of like a phoenix rising out of the ashes of huge destructive times. And so we've had to go back to some very primitive methods of navigation and relearning, rediscovering a lot of our lost knowledge. And so we know there is a North Pole. It's pretty obvious there's no South Pole, there's a South Rim. And that rim is a physical limitation. I mean, our technology has now reached a point where we may be able to start seriously considering investigating beyond the Antarctic ice wall. But if you consider the reality of what this Antarctic ice wall is, it's mostly 200 foot or more of sheer ice wall. Operation High Jump was the first first major military attempt in recent times to get beyond it. And what they found once they get beyond it is once you go over several hundred or thousand more kilometres of icy plains, you come across some of those massive, biggest mountains you could imagine. Now, it's not practical to climb even the biggest, highest mountains here in known places like the Himalayas and whatever. A lot of people do it these days, but it takes a lot of preparation. But if you're going somewhere where there's no fuel, no supplies, no extra oxygen to pump up tanks that you may need, you're talking about a major expedition if you're going to do it by land. But what we also found in Operation High Jump and Operation Deep Freeze is rumours of these planes flying along, trying to get beyond it, and all of a sudden just disintegrating, exploding into something as though they're hitting an invisible force field, which a lot of people claim maybe that's the edge of the dome. It's another great unknown. Operation High Jump, I think, was also a reconnaissance mission where they were trying to get back one of their drilling machines that was boring into what they call this blue ice. But the blue ice keeps growing back over it, and so the machine got swallowed up by it, and they lost it. So they lost a lot of very, very expensive equipment. And the conditions in Antarctica are so inhospitable, possibly hitting the firmament. There's no way of knowing for sure because it's all been covered up. But it's so inhospitable that the very temperatures alone make it virtually impossible to even consider sending land-based expeditions. About the only way you could do it, Juan Carlos, cheers mate, about the only way you could really do it, as far as I'm concerned, giving it lots and lots of thoughts, is with some sort of helium dirigible, as in blimp, that's got a big wing across the top with massive solar panels where you gain a lot of power to charge air compressors, which you wouldn't need a great lot. You don't need massive air compressors to run this sort of vehicle, as long as you kept it reasonable sized and, you know, not too big a crew, not too much equipment. Learned how to carry your own food sources in such a way that you're basically just surviving off sprouted seeds for a while, the most highest form of nutrition, where you don't need to carry slabs and slabs of dead animals, as some people would have you believe. And you can grow one tiny tablespoon of seed is enough to grow a decent loaf per person per day. So you don't need to carry great amounts of resources. You could use dehumidification to create all the fresh water supplies you need. And basically then you're using wind power and compressed air power. And if you run out of solar power to run your air compressors, you can still sit there on an exercise bike or similar and create electricity. You know, it's not that difficult to do for a clear-headed, clear-minded thinking person who has thought out the expedition fully and realises that once you get beyond Antarctica, you might still have just as far again to go as, say, from, you know, New Zealand or Chile or Tasmania to Antarctica, or further, before you even find the next land. It still might be hit and miss before you even actually find solid land. You might go straight between continents for as far as you know, so it's not going to be the most easiest journey possible, but basically you still need to get beyond Antarctica, perhaps go a couple of thousand miles, and then start going in an east or west circle again until you find land, rather than just keep going in a straight line outwards, which is what southwards always is. So yeah, it's a good question there. What do you call yourself again? Captain Eli. Why are we limiting ourselves to these few continents and islands? There's infinite land out there. Well, that is why. It's very difficult. And I believe that we are imprisoned here in this realm for a reason. Now, whether it's a good reason or a bad reason, whether it's sinister or for our own good, maybe a combination of all of the above. We are here, trapped in this planar Earth, because this is where we're meant to be, in the right place at the right time. So this is the right time, this is the right place, this is where we can start applying some thought and thinking, well, if we really want to discover these lands, maybe it's like in the days of Moses, where he'd be told about the promised lands, where he could escape the tyranny of slavery, set his people free, so to speak. Well, maybe we're just reliving the same old story, just on a grander scale. So how do we escape the tyranny of slavery? Do we run away, or do we stand up to it? That's anybody's guess. I'm just open to a lot of ideas and suggestions, and I do believe there are far greater lands beyond Antarctica that are going to be very, very challenging to get to. And the helium blimp, the dirigible, which I've exposed my designs before. If you look back through the history of my channel, I just noticed today I've got 444 uploads. That's quite a few for someone who doesn't like public speaking. But yeah, it's called the Helios, or Flat Earth Maniac, Flat Earth Genius, whatever it was I called it, reveals the Helios. And the Helios are named after, well, basically the sun god, as well as helium being what gives the thing buoyancy. And I've gone into a lot of details on that too, and that's well worth looking into. I'll just look at the next couple of questions that Captain Eli asks. Interesting name, Eli, L. And if you did a little bit of juggling around like you would do with Neo to become the one, you'd find that Eli is the word lie. So he's the captain of lies, this fellow. What is the distance between Los Angeles and Boston on a flat Earth if you were to draw a straight line? What is the distance between the same two cities on a roundish Earth? Well, see, this sort of thing doesn't bother me in the least. I don't care. If you're really interested in this sort of stuff, then go and ask somebody who gives a shit. Because I don't give a shit about distances that obviously are what they are. The plane takes off from one and goes to the next, and it takes the time it takes. It varies due to trade winds, to the various whatevers that are involved with it. And as long as you get there and you're alive, the actual distance really is irrelevant to me. Like sometimes I think when I've flown to New Zealand, it's far, far further than what it's shown on our maps. Far, far further. Like it should be taking an hour and a half, but it can take like 3 to 4 hours to get there. And same as coming back again. So whatever distances exist, they don't match what we see on our maps. But they are what they are. So deal with that as you will. If you want to, you can substitute any two cities that have a well-established flight path between them. That way you can ask people online who've actually flown from city A to city B and can tell you for certain. Well, that's right. And as I say, I don't think they match up at all. In fact, I would think that if there are these southern flights from Sydney to Santiago, Chile, well, to me it seems most of the ones, like my mother actually did this a bit over a year ago, they always stop at New Zealand. Now, as I say, if that's a 3 to 4 hour flight, which you'd expect to be much less, and then you have this big stopover, and then you're all tired and blah blah, you sleep on your plane, and then when you wake up over there they tell you what the time is, and they tell you it took 11 hours or something. You don't really know exactly how long it took. Very few people take an analog watch and keep it at the same time, or take 2 watches so they can see the home time when they left and the local time when they get there, and they compare the two, how much hours it really is difference. And there's also quite easily the possibility that planes have far greater technology than what we're told. Now, I'm not saying they do this with every plane, but I'm sure that there would be a few, select few perhaps, where maybe they'd introduce this new flight with some great celebrity, even though flights have been going on for decades and decades. But let's just bring in John Travolta for Qantas to present this new flight from Sydney to Santiago, Chile. I mean, what the fuck? What's that all about? Why not just introduce a new flight and leave it at that? It's not really that big a deal. Yet for some reason this was a big deal. So maybe this plane has some sort of extra technology that gives you a bit of a boost when it's up in the air. So when you're up in the air, flying across the ocean, no physical landmarks, quite often in darkness, how the hell would you know what actual speed it's really going? It could easily be going 2 to 3 times the same speed that you're used to, and you would know no different whatsoever. So a flight that might normally take 36 hours in the old-fashioned technology could be done in 11 or 12 hours. It's completely feasible. So distances of flight are completely different from distances by land, where you can actually measure the mileage, using the odometer on your car and trying to take into account different curves and bends and hills and so on. You can work out a fairly good average distance across land, but you can't do it in a plane and you can't do it in a boat. Neither of them have the same sort of measuring devices for how far you're actually going. In a boat you've even got less idea again, because you don't even know if you're going in a straight line. If you're going due west or due east, you're constantly adjusting because you're only telling that by having your needle pointing due north. And so the further south you are, the much, much bigger arc you're going. So you might think you're going 3 times further than if you actually went in a straight line, which you can't do using a compass, and possibly quite difficult to do using stellar navigation as well. So yeah, Captain Liar says, I'm always leery of my comments getting deleted on channels addressing these sorts of topics. Hopefully you're a respectable sort that won't delete this, and also hopefully you'll actually address what I've included. Well, this is what I'm doing at the moment, mate. Oh, somebody made a comment to that. PELE, planar Earth lovers everywhere. A day ago says, Captain Eli, why would anyone delete your comment? It's funny and adds to the mental illness that is heliocentric belief. Thanks for chiming in. I like that because, yeah, normally we're the ones viewed as the ones with the mental illness because we question the heliocentric belief. And we wouldn't question it, you know, if we were mentally ill. We'd just go along with it and say anybody who does question it must be mentally ill. Hence this dichotomy we find ourselves in. Flat Earth versus flat Earth realism. So Gonzo the Great, what a muppet. I used to watch the Muppets when I was a kid, so I remember Gonzo, biggest hook nose of them all. So I responded, yeah, feeling good, mate. How's Miss Piggy going? Archimedes and I, oh, he was on here earlier. I think he likes to promote the eating of dead animals, so he thinks it's good for you. I figure do what you feel good with. I don't judge. Just don't tell me what to do. Gonzo the Great, he's used to the cycle of getting shit-faced daily. Well, that's not true. I don't get shit-faced daily. I get a little bit happy some days. I'm a regular drinker. I'm what they call a functioning alcoholic, I guess is the correct term. Most of the times I don't get shit-faced at all. So, you know, be lucky if I do once a fortnight, to be honest, and even then I don't like it. Oh, I did respond. Archimedes and I, what you think of as shit-faced is obviously a reflection of your own mind. I might get a bit happy, that's no lie, but I don't do it until I fall over. You eat dead animals, how's that working out for you? Chilster Deluxe, he's an awesome dude. How you going, Chilster? So what if the guy likes a beer? Surely you have better material than that. Nice one, Ross. Cheers, buddy. I better give that one a little love heart, actually. Archimedes and I. Eating beef and animal product as my primary food source has been highly beneficial. My skin has never looked better and building muscle just comes naturally. Only you could convince yourself that being a lazy, alcoholic vegetarian is of benefit. Lol. Typical of the lying alcoholic, really. Well, if it works for you, mate, you know, you go for it. You go out and walk out into a paddock and start biting into a cow. See how that works out for you. You know, you pay people to kill it for you. You're a conspirator to murder of these animals. You pay them to be butchered up for you. You go and buy select pieces from your butcher, and you take it home and you heat treat it to kill off all the toxins. I'm sure you don't ever walk up to a cow in a field and start chomping into it like a lion would, draining its blood and drinking it warm, eating all the soft meats, the contents of its belly, and then leaving all the flesh for the scavengers to come and pick off. You know, it's totally unnatural for humans to eat mammal flesh. Good on you, Jason. And planar Earth lovers everywhere chimed in. Archimedes and I, none of his habits make heliocentric belief any less retarded. That's the whole point, isn't it? You know, we might all have our faults, our vices, the things that maybe aren't the best for us, but we do our best. And what we do is still focus on the truth. So if the truth is that eating meat works for you, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I would recommend you stop for your own good, you're only feeding your parasites, you're only compacting the wastes in your colon that are going to be building up over decades until eventually you'll get colon cancer and die. But hey, that's your business. If it's your choice, free will choice, mate. At least try and eat some vegetables with it, and try and balance it with at least 3 or 4 vegetarian meals per week. So that's all the comments on that one. This other one that I really wanted to get back to, it's got so many comments on it. As I say, it's got nearly 400, and I could be here all day finding them all. And I don't know if it's even worth trying to read some. I should just scroll through until beyond a week ago, keep on clicking on show more replies. So in the meantime, if anyone wants to chuck a question at me. Carl Penn says, what, not using your flat tardio Jesus moniker today? Well, the point is, mate, I've always used my real name, Ross Thatcher. It's only when I went onto the non-sequitur show that they say enter your names that I wrote in Flat Earth Aussie Jesus, just, to create a bit of showmanship or something, to create a character, to be someone who I will openly admit that I had found at one point in my life, 20 years ago actually, Christ consciousness. It's an amazing, amazing experience. It didn't last for long, like 2 weeks tops, before I felt it slide away out of me after I got angry. It's quite possible that this sort of thing can happen if you don't maintain your cool, calm and collected self. And of course, I had to go back to my normal everyday job, which back then I was cleaning pubs. The Hotel Great Northern in Byron Bay was the one I cleaned. They had big vans virtually every night. The place would be trash from one end to the next. The bathrooms would be vomit from one end to the next. Broken glass everywhere. Cigarette butts everywhere. You name it. Different parties, different sorts of mess. But pretty much it was a shit fight every single day. And that's what I did for a living. I'd turn up at 4 in the morning, put in my 3 to 4 hours work, go home, ride my bike back home, or take my combi back home to the caravan park I lived in, called Cosby's Caravan Park, right on the beach practically between Cape Byron and Broken Head, and then decide how was my day going to go. It always meant going to the beach and having a look at the surf. Do I go for a surf? Do I just chill out in the shade of a she oak tree and get a bit of sun, have a bit of a body bash? Do I go for a long walk up to the Cape or down to Broken Head? Go for long, long walks. Ride my bike down the beach if the tide was low. I was so in tune with tides and the moon and everything for so long that I just loved the lifestyle too much to bother going back to university like I planned to do, to study to become a naturopath. Basically also because my sister started a similar course, but she did it down at a private college down in Sydney. The same sort of course basically, but it costed tuition fees. And her whole philosophy changed. Like within a period of 6 months, as we'd ring up and talk and have a chat, she'd be saying things that totally went against what I agreed upon. She was vegan or vegetarian well before I was. I was trying hard, but she was doing it. She was living the life. And then she said, we did this study where it showed different blood types, and our blood type says that we should be eating meat. And so she reverted back to becoming a meat eater again, basically because she liked it. And so I was like, that's fine, but we'll see in the test of time. Now when you look at us one to each other, glow bear no more. G'day, mate. Going good. Now that we're both a bit older, I'm going to be 48 this coming winter solstice, June 22nd. She's 2 and a bit years younger than me. She's September. So I won't give her birthday away, but she's in September. So and when we look at each other side by side, the youthful vitality of me compared to her, she's still doing pretty well. She's pretty clued on. She's a nutritionist. She's a colonic hydrotherapist. So she looks after herself pretty well. She does yoga and exercise and surfing and all that stuff too, down near Coffs Harbour. And she's a pretty clued on chick, but you can see in her skin how much more she's aged compared to myself. So I'm not trying to brag or anything, But I sort of am often thought of at least 10 years younger than my actual age by most people who meet me. And yeah, the beard maybe hides it a bit. But even back when I was, shaving my head, trimming my little goatee, people would still say the same. I just looked so much younger. The difference is back then, I wasn't as clued on with my diet, so I'd probably eat more chicken than I should have. These days I eat minimal. I'm not vegan by any means. I try to be, but to me, by following Zen macrobiotic cooking standards, as long as the majority of your diet is based on brown rice, then chicken and fish are both considered neutral foods, comfort foods. There's something eventually you will try to remove from your diet if you really could be bothered. But once you've gone through the whole cleansing process and eliminated all the red meat and dairy from your system, having these comfort foods is pretty much just that. It's harmless, it's comfort, and they taste good. So, I'm not knocking anyone for doing what they do, because I do break the rules all the time. If occasionally I catch a mud crab down at one of the local creeks, well, I'll bring it home and cook it up straight away, and it's the most delicious thing, but you don't want to do it too often. So I could spend forever reading through all these comments. I wonder if actually they're not scrolling up. No, they seem to be. I get lots of lovely comments on Quaid, Flat Earth's station channel. Chris A. Oh, he had to edit it. Says to James Campbell, crap, didn't know that shit for brains idiot was an Aussie. Tell us where he lives. That town needs to be put on moron alert. Mate, I'll gladly tell you where I live. I live... How many critical thinkers like us down under? That's exactly it. I live not too far from Byron Bay, the easternmost point of the Australian mainland. It's called a small village called Clunes, in between my old village where I lived for 15 years after living in Byron for about nearly 3. It's between Bangalow and Lismore. This is where I happen to be living for the last 7 or so years. Doesn't really matter where I live, just so long as I'm happily living here in the Northern Rivers. This place is just beautiful. We're currently battling the edges of a cyclone, Cyclone Oma. It was meant to have hit land just south of us at a place called Ballina, but it turned around and headed back north again. Who knows if a bit of positive thinking and not living in fear helped. I don't know. Fortunately around here we got a lot of people right into making and using orgonite. I've probably got a piece nearby somewhere. Oh, there's one over there. I can just stuff getting up to get it to show you. But orgonite is basically an excellent defense against this weaponized weather systems they're using against us. So, highly recommend you look into that. Use it. This one. I like this one. You can't even spell his name very well. It's Cnocspeirag. Knoxspierag, perhaps. Ross Thatcher, a distinguished graduate of the Dunning-Kruger University. Now that is quite interesting, because this morning I did actually see that movie or documentary called Beyond the Curve. First time I watched it, I was always going to talk about that, but I thought, no, it is what it is. It speaks for itself. But they do mention about the Dunning-Kruger. And, of course, it actually turns out that nearly all globe believers are Dunning-Kruger affected people. See, the flat earther understands the globe model inside and out. When we set out to debunk something, we don't just go to set out to prove what we want it to be. I never wanted it to be a flat earth. I loved the globe. I loved it. To me, it was just this fantastic. We are on the most special little spinning ball with our perfectly spaced moon and sun, and everything is just working in perfect motion. until you investigate it and realise, hang on a second, we can see way too far. We shouldn't be able to see that on a spinning ball. Wait a second, there is no motion. Wait a second, why don't the constellations ever change? If they're billions and billions of light years away, then every year that we go around the sun, well, not only 6 months later should we be looking 180 degrees in the opposite direction and seeing completely different constellations, completely different ones. You know, the ones we've left behind on the other side of the sun should not be visible at all. And yet I can see the Southern Cross every night of the year, right out my front door. And I walk down the mountain or down this hill virtually every night, weather permitting. And as soon as I get past the first forest, here's this telegraph pole, and bam, I can line up the Southern Cross with it every night all year round in more or less the same spot. It does change a little bit, but the parallax of the stars never changes. The angle we see them at towards, you know, the cross might be pointed this way or however it may be pointed, but it's still the same Southern Cross with the same distance between the same stars. Now, if we're moving through the galaxy, all these stars should be changing parallax constantly. It would never be the same from one year to the next. And yet, for thousands of years, we have the loyal disciples, the constellations, the houses of the zodiac, all appearing to go around the sun. This is pretty much what heliocentrism is all about. But when you think about then that it's the stationary plane, our Earth, with them moving about as one around us on the sidereal day, so that they actually lose 4 minutes per day, as opposed to what we should be doing if we were spinning around, going around the sun. Night and day would swap place every 6 months. It doesn't happen because the sun is on a fixed circle, going around us once every 24 hours, so it's always back overhead at midday. That's why sundials all work off that. That's why all clocks never need adjustment to keep the sun overhead at midday, despite our daylight savings fiasco that we have to put up with. Basically, it's the stars revolving in their slow motion movement, not just once per day, but also once per year on an annual cycle. No, they still always end up back where they were every night. It's just some of them will change. So there is some shift. They're obviously shifting around. Like, I can go out and see Orion in the middle of the night sky at the moment, but in the middle of winter, it's too far to the north for me to be able to see. So there is some shift going along, but I still don't understand how Polaris then remains fixed for you northern inner hemispherians. I've just got no idea how that works, because if maybe Polaris isn't as fixed as they say, maybe it does travel around a bit. I don't know. I'd like to maybe spend a few years up in the northern hemisphere, somewhere where it's not too polluted, and observe it for myself. But my observations here in the south show me that the Southern Cross is constant. No change in parallax, ever. And that started with a Dunning-Kruger. A bit rich. This is David Weeks here, a week ago. I really should scroll through all these. I'll never get through them, but hey, I've got all afternoon, so I'm just going to sit here and have a beer and read some comments. A bit rich coming from the man who thinks the Grand Canyon was made by giants. You expect us to take anything you say seriously? What an asshole. Well, David Weeks, you're entitled to your opinion. I have put forth a hypothesis which didn't just pop up overnight. I spent years studying this sort of stuff. You know, have a look back through my channel and watch The Secret of the Ages, a book I read out. It's probably just over there in my bookshelf, actually. It talks about a lot of conclusive evidence of giants existing, of lost lands, of lost technology, of suppressed history. So much has been suppressed. And when you look at the other documentary put out by the Russian fella called There Are No Forests on the Flat Earth, it's an eye-opener. It's something really worth watching from start to finish. After watching that, I slowly started putting two and two together, thinking, well, I know that the moon is an artificial construct. I don't believe in outer space anymore. You know, the first theory I heard about that 30, 25 years ago, somewhere like that, said that some of these um, aliens, some other outer space beings, dragged the moon here from another galaxy and put it in place. That was their theory at the time, and I just no longer believe there are other galaxies. They might have come from beyond the ice wall of Antarctica, somewhere on the infinite physical plane, because there are no other physical planes in our universe, so far as I'm concerned. And so then, well, when you look at this documentary about no forests on flat Earth, and you look and you see the destruction, the massive, massive destruction that has happened in the past, I'm just left with no other conclusion than to think that they could have mined the raw materials from what we now call the Grand Canyon. It's just a best theory, and I'm sticking with it until somebody proves me wrong. Now this ridicule, you know, a bit rich coming from the man who thinks the Grand Canyon was made by giants. You expect us to take anything you say seriously. Well, what investigation have you done into that, David Weeks? I'll tell you what investigation you've done into it. Absolutely zero. You hear it, and it magically, it automatically triggers your cognitive dissonance bloody buttons, and so you think that I'm an idiot, I'm a moron. Hey, I've looked into this stuff for years, mate. So calling me an arsehole for presenting a new idea that actually makes sense for how our moon got there. You know, some people would say it was an asteroid hit the planet Earth, and that makes more sense to make a perfectly spherical ball floating around in the sky above us, or somehow magically staying the same distance from us as the Earth is hurtling towards it at 67,000 miles per hour. It's repelling it away. And then when it's behind us, we're hurtling away through the galaxy at 67,000 miles per hour, and we're attracting it again. That to me is the most ridiculous, nonsensical argument you could ever put forth. The idea of a heliocentric moon is sheer and utter nonsense. We know it's there, it's obviously there, we can't deny its existence, but we have to come up with a realistic explanation for why it's there. Now, if it's hovering around us, taking 50 minutes longer than the sun to go around us once, following a similar sort of path to the sun, then obviously that's what it's doing. Not some magical going backwards around us once every 27.3 days as we're hurtling through the galaxy of space, chasing the sun going 514,000 miles per hour. I mean, come on. It's when you seriously, critically analyse the heliocentric model, you have to realise you must be insane to have ever fallen for it. Don't get sidetracked in these little ones. How exactly do flat earthers explain gravity? Well, I've done that plenty of times. We're just constantly accelerating at 9.8 metres per second. No. We call it the density of air. A thing of mass is not supported by air, so it will fall through it. It will fall through it at the same rate as a thing of mass of any other amount of mass. So the attraction of mass would say the heavier mass should fall faster. But no, they're just falling through the medium of air. I don't know if it's really accelerating 9.8 metres per second and you're left out the squared. You know, I don't think it's falling 9.8 metres per second squared. You know, if it takes me 9.8 metres, it takes me 1 second to hit the water after jumping off a cliff 9.8 metres tall. If it was 19 metres tall, 20 metres high, let's say, I'm not going to hit it in 1.5 seconds, or am I? And then vice versa, take it up another 10 metres, that would mean I'll hit it in 1 3/4 seconds. And so you're infinitely getting faster and faster and faster. I don't know, I've heard of terminal velocity, which totally debunks that theory anyway. Maybe it's just 9.8 metres per second, not per second squared. Dr. Sleeping Eyes. Well, yeah, that's just basically says exactly what I'm saying. Why things in vacuum chamber falls down when there's no buoyancy. What gives things their weight? Answer these questions without gravity. You've already answered it yourself. There is no buoyancy. You know, it finds the buoyancy when it hits the bottom and is arrested. That's what gives things their weight. That's just one of the... You know, honestly, globe earthers think they're asking something sensible when they say, you know, well, why don't things fall up? It's like, you really think something of less density is going to give more buoyancy than something of more buoyancy after it falls through the less dense area to find a more dense area which will give it buoyancy. I honestly think these people are complete mental retards, that they feel there must be a force pulling rather than just the fact that there is no force arresting to give it buoyancy. Yeah, paid NASA shill. Well, at least he calls himself honestly. The majority of flurfers will say it's all about buoyancy and density, like our intellectually blessed friend demonstrates, then resort to ad hominems or serving word salads with 1,000 typos dressing when confronted with the fact that a force is required. Oh well, I've already addressed this. Some will claim it's all magnetism, and some come up with even funnier explanations. My favourite, flat Earth accelerates upwards 9.8 metres per second squared. That means the pizza planet would reach light speed within 50 years. Like the clusterfuck of problems with causality would in any way be more plausible than a sphere-shaped mass attracting mass towards its centre. Well, Paul NASA shill, paid NASA shill, I think I've already addressed that, mate. We don't think we live on a frickin' pizza moving anywhere. I've always said, always maintained, and I will always say, it's a stationary, planar Earth at the bottom of the known universe. What that universe is still a bit of a mystery, but I've got some pretty good ideas, but it's irrelevant to what the Earth is. You don't look at the lights in your ceiling to determine the shape of your floor, and therefore you do not look up into the universe to determine the shape of the Earth. You look at the Earth, you detect the movement, and when you find there is none, then you say, good, it's a flat, stationary, planar Earth. And all we can observe is other things moving around above us. Let's see what Sky talks. Oh, that's a long one, Sky Stalker. I'll read it anyway, just for the hell of it. As I say, I really should scroll through most of these, because there's nearly 400 of them. No, Ross, it is you that is wrong about a great many things. You claim you're a naturalist, and yet you flat out deny, as do all flat earthers, what the physical world is actually showing you, and instead imposing your sillier operational beliefs on nature. No, I think I've explained them all pretty logically. Science sees the universe in brutal realism. The problem is people dress it up to fit what is agreeable and pleasant to them and what makes them feel special, which is what makes people full of themselves. Ooh, should we talk about people full of themselves? I know, I'm not going to show it, but just let's listen. Because this is just gold. I wonder if I can take it all the way back to the start. Fight the fly, 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 the cray. Listen to this. YouTube's biggest bullshit returns.
You know the flirts. Every comment, every view, dislike, video you make about me, they all help me.
It's not flat.
Don't you ever dare proclaim to be more intelligent than me.
Don't you dare.
The Craig.
Turn it up a little bit. The entire fucking universe. Are you sitting down? Here it comes. Brace yourselves.
Oh, and by the way, the edge of the universe from our perspective is about 14.26 gigaparsecs or 46.5 billion light years in every direction. Thus, the observable universe is a sphere with a circumference of approximately 28.5 gigaparsecs or 93 billion light years. Anything outside of this is accelerating away from us too fast for us to ever detect. Don't you ever dare proclaim to be more intelligent than me.
You pompous, stuck-up, snot-nosed, English giant twerp, scumbag, fuckface, dickhead, asshole.
Fight the flock, 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 fight the flock.
Oh god, he does it to himself, doesn't he? Anyway, so this is who we're talking about here. Science sees the universe in brutal realism. The problem is people dress it up to fit what is agreeable and pleasant to them and what makes them feel special, which is what makes people full of themselves. How many parsecs and bullshit was that again, Mr. Quaig McNeil? Fight the flat earth. The difference between a flirt and a glober is we don't dress up the physical world, we let it be, and we simply observe and applaud it for what it is and not what we would make it. And that's where you absolutely fail, Ross, 100%. I have watched you on the Non Sequitur show get brutally destroyed. Your word salads, with an apostrophe, how can you have that sort of salads? Your word salads are almost as terrible as fuckwit words. You make shit up that has no scientific merit or process behind it and amassing a mob of brain-dead monkeys calling for the embrace of idiocracy that does not amount to a sufficient hypothesis to bring about the end of scientific method. It's just laughable, which is why it's simple does not get taken seriously. If density always wins, then you're essentially presenting that there is a universal up and down to the entire cosmos, which means anything that we view looking up should fall down unless bolted down. If you tilted Earth, all water would spill down into nothingness. Funny, because I trained my telescope on Saturn and its rings. It's abundantly clear to me it's a sphere, and it's holding that shape by some mysterious force which apparently does not exist. The rocks and debris orbiting Saturn and its moons are not falling universally down. Puzzler? Don't even get me started on all space is fake, because you claim you don't know anything about technology, but you take no pause in your own admission before agreeing with anti-experts that all space is faked. LOL. Okay, so what does that make you? Willfully naive? Have you spoken to any forensic photographers or CGI specialists? Because I have, and there are lots of videos by real life experts debunking these ridiculous sensationalist claims. I guess that goes both ways, doesn't it? You know, if we want to debunk sensationalist claims, well, that's pretty much what we're doing with your idea that Satan, the great deceiver, the Lord of the Rings, is basically a great deception. Now, if you follow my philosophy as to what I'm thinking all the stars are, is they're all basically disembodied souls, orbs of light, balls of energy. Now, when I was in the Philippines, this sort of opened up my mind to the fact that there's often lots of orbs that are inexplicable appearing on pictures. One night, I decided to speak to them. They didn't like it. I ended up having the most terrifying experiences that I've had in a long time that were very, very real. Where I basically said to them, I was trying to help them, saying that, I want to open up a channel for you guys to find your way into the other realms, to escape this realm. They're quite happy and content. They don't know any better. These are very innocent, lost souls. They just hang around and observe the earth. And I'll tell you what, I got woken up in the middle of the night with severe stabbing pains in my back that really felt like the knife was being pushed into me. It was terrible. I woke up, my body was freezing cold, despite it being in the Philippines, tropical bloody heat. I had to put my feet on the floor to ground myself. It took me a good half an hour just to warm my body back up again. And so I just says to them, okay, you do your own thing. I'm only trying to help. I didn't bother them anymore. It never happened again. But it was a very, very, very real experience. And to have that extreme cold sensation for so long, and most of the nights we've got the air conditioner running the whole night. You can't even have a sheet over you because it's just too stinking hot. That was a very real experience that happened to me. So I don't, for a second, question the validity of orbs and the spirit world. And I seriously suggest that there's a line from the Lion King movie where, you know, what's his name? Simba? Been a long time since I've seen it. He, when they're talking about the stars and the sun, he says, well, my dad told me that he says that they are the great kings of the past watching over us. I think there's actually a huge element of truth in that one particular line. Sometimes you find it hidden in all sorts of fictional stories and movies. So when I suggest that stars are some sort of orbs, they're also families, you know, familiars. And when we look at Saturn, we know that traditionally Saturn is Satan, the Lord of the Rings. One ring to bind them all, or to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. So we see them at night time, that's the darkness. We see them bound. So what we're seeing are the followers of Saturn. They're creating this ring. That's not a physical body of rocks. You know, that's rocks in your head to think that there are rocks floating around in space. Which is why I've always said that the moon is somehow mocking us with this crazy idea that it is a rock in space, because in a way it technically is. It's a floating rock in space. And that is part of the Great Deception. That's why I say, you know, whoever built it under the direction of Satan did so to mock us, to fool us, to be part of the Great Deception, to just be another chink in the chain. It was like, well, look at the moon. It's a rock. Therefore, all the other celestials must be rocks. It's all a massive, great deception. So when you start thinking about these rings around Saturn, no, they're just the ones who bound themselves to that particular thought or school of belief, which they're entitled to do. They're still existing in a physical realm, part of heaven, and they're probably having a great old time. And if that's their idea of where they want to be and where they choose to be, that's fine. For me, when I was a kid, I just looked up at Orion. To me, that felt like, to me, that's where I've come from. I don't know why. I just was transfixed on Orion's belt, the Big Dipper. Actually, we call it the Big Dipper, but I think there's a different Big Dipper in the northern hemisphere. Anyway, that's just what I think when it comes to stars. Which creatures were that? What was that again? Misty Night for the Children. You have entities coming after you at times. I know how that is. You can protect yourself pretty easily. Yeah, there's all sorts of demonic entities that, especially when we go into the dream realm, the dream realm to me is just as real as this physical realm, and we can get stuck there, I suppose, to some degree. In fact, some might even suggest that this realm is another version of the dream realm. We just wake up to it and it's just a bit more constant. The way you protect yourself is basically, there's basically limitless, endless ways, depending upon your beliefs, your philosophies. If you believe in a higher being, you can call upon this higher being, you know, just by saying the name Jesus Christ can often work quite well if you're a true believer. Some people call on Yahweh, but the strongest way is to feel this light within yourself and just create a bubble of light around yourself to protect yourself. That is a force field against anything, if you're able to strongly believe. Some others will even, as they go to sleep, visually draw on their ceiling, you know, with their mind, a pentagram of light. And with that there, that creates an angel of protection that can also help stop these entities from invading your space. Yeah, but the higher being is within yourself. But yes, if you can call upon them, absolutely. I've seen some amazing things done. People calling upon what they believe in. That's the most important thing is you don't have to know that it's true, but when you believe, it's kind of like make believe, means also to make be alive. So, all you're really doing on is calling upon your own higher self in a form that you can tangibly grasp. So when you're calling upon a higher being, it's really your own higher self. Absolutely mind over matter, but you have to believe. There's no two ways about it. If you're a doubter, if you doubt everything, um, then you're sort of opening that doorway. Doubt is a doorway to let these entities flood in. But strong, untenable belief, something that cannot be taken from you because it comes from within, it is stronger than anything. You can withstand anything and you can do anything, whether it be in this physical realm or in the dream realm, the next sort of haven't really thought about this one for a while, but it's another like dimension of existence. Quite often where a lot of us go when we become disembodied, which is why we sleep so regularly, because we need to go to this realm to recharge, let our bodies rest, and sometimes we can attract certain entities and things we don't. It's probably afternoon here by now, but yeah, 1:34 p.m. But lucid dreaming, absolutely, look into it. The only way you can really learn how to lucid dream is by experience, and I find the best way for me, especially if I'm having trouble sleeping, which does happen a lot, the best way then is to say, okay, fight the urge to go and lay on your side or whatever, and just put your arms by your side and lay on your back. And before you know it, you'll be lucid dreaming. It's pretty well the only way to do it. I think it helps to be overtired and to, yeah, just fight the urge to go into normal natural sleep. And once you're lucid dreaming, you can choose the experience you want to have. I mean, choose to go flying. Flying is just the ultimate. I love it, and it's so real. Like sometimes I have to check myself, and I say to myself, okay, I've got the ability to fly. I must be in a dream. And when you tell yourself that, you say, well, don't wake up. Enjoy this experience. It's just the best. So, yeah, strongly recommend it. But yeah, you can protect yourself. And just by emanating this ball of white light around you with a physical barrier, that in itself is protection. That comes from the higher self. So, strongly recommend it. I really want to find, there's one guy who put a very long comment in here. Ian Woolridge, I might just read this one. At James Campbell, mate, I can't find how the thread started, but I don't take offence. I give it back mostly even harder, as most flat earths have just the basics of the written word, mainly from USA. It's kind of like a sport for me, as most are idiots, so they get what they deserve. I take pot shots at people like Mark Sargent, and he doesn't reply as he's such a coward. Mate, now that's a ridiculous thing to say. Ian Woolridge, taking pot shots at people like Mark Sargent, he's got better things to do than respond to a troll. Wow, he's not a coward. He's just treating you like the piece of little shit that you are. Last week I asked him why won't he debate people like Red or Wolfie, as he knows these guys and the other top anti-flat earth guys would just shred him like Red did to Jeranism a couple of months ago. Well, there you go. First of all, Wolfie isn't even a real person. He hides behind his fake pseudonym. He bans anybody that actually responds to his ridiculous self-fulfilling posts, but don't look to debunk his belief, but just set out to keep proving it. When I constantly started going there quite a bit to debunk him, what does he do? He blocks me. Well done, Wolfie. Not a real person. Claims to have a different, separate channel, which he makes millions off. Go figure. So he's multi-personality. multi-millionaire with nothing better to do than buy expensive toys and try and discredit the truth movement. Reds, as some of you may or not seen, I was on a debate with him recently called the Non Sequitur Show, the Saturday night number 10, after my very first introduction to live debates with Quag for Flat Earth on number 9, who made a complete dick of himself. But when I had to go against Red's rhetoric, I ended up pretty much retiring him from the business. He's hardly been back since, from what I've seen. He's even given up his channel because he could see that I speak the truth. I've got no reason to make up lies. I've got no reason to say that this curvature you think you see is just an illusion apart from, if it was there, I'd say it's there. And it exists. But we don't see it. There is no curvature. And I proved him wrong. I proved to him how perspective works. He kept trying to say, why can't you see the colour of the hull on this ship? Hey, red pill philosophy, how you doing, brother? A whole bureau of one. I told him why you can't see the colour of the ship. Because due to distance. There is this thing called the obscurity point at a certain point. It's very, very straightforward stuff. Yeah, cheers, Red Pill. I did, and I think I did a bloody good job of it too. As I say, I think I put him into retirement after that. And I did it nice and politely. Said I just agree to disagree and that you simply don't comprehend how perspective works over vast distances because we're so very low to the ground, we can only see so far. And then this whole illusion of what appears to be curvature of pylons over a vast distance that can be zoomed in on with a camera that we can't normally see with the naked eye. It's just an illusion. So, yeah. Good to see you, mate. Thanks for dropping in, eh? Appreciate it. I'm sort of trying to read through a few comments here. It's going to take me all day to find the one I actually want to get to because I just have to scroll through them all. Oh, just remember, Ross, 15 degrees per hour has been independently verified by a flattard. This is another anonymous person called OSCI08. Wow. Don't you love it how these defenders of the globe remain anonymous, hide behind their fake names and everything. So 15 degrees per hour has not been independently verified by a flattard whatsoever. They used a non-mechanical gyroscope, the ring laser gyroscope, which is intentionally designed to fit the globe model to comport with the belief that they want it to comport with. It doesn't prove that the Earth is moving at all. It still proves that the stars are moving, but relative to the Earth, it appears as though the Earth is moving 15 degrees. So we can use relativity against you when we want to. Village idiot control. Shit for brains. What is it like to be really stupid? I wouldn't know, so I'm reaching out to the biggest dumb fuck I see. You. Gotta love these globe heads, don't you? They really think that having an alternative opinion makes you dumb. Yeah. Except I understand everything you wankers understand about your spinning ball model. Except I also understand reality. And I can put 2 and 2 together and realise the Earth is stationary. The stars are moving. The sun is moving. The moon is moving. The Earth is stationary. I just want to find this really long one because he keeps hassling me to answer, and that was the purpose of making this. Oh shit, don't tell me they've deleted a whole heap of them. Or maybe I went too far. No, it looks like a heap of them have been deleted. It goes up to 1 week ago. 1 week ago, 1 week ago. And then that's it. Maybe YouTube have created limitations now in the number of comments you can have on a video or on a response. Because I'm pretty sure if I go right back up here. Oh, he's unpinned mine and he's gone and deleted a whole heap of shit. Wow. Well, cowardly fight the flat earth, so be that then. I can't answer the ones I came here to do because he's gone and deleted them all. It had, like I say, nearly 400 comments. And it's not there. Maybe it's this one. I could have been mistaken here. Okay. I might have been clicked on the wrong one. Yeah, this would be the one. It's got Professor Games in it. I entertained him for a bit. Here's one response I did to him. Professor Games, I did address your inquiry and told you how an exponentially larger amount of helium would have far greater lifting capacity due to the ratio of volume to mass. I'm simply not bothered by specifics when logic dictates that it's entirely probable and far too difficult to actually replicate. He was trying to say, fill a glass bauble with helium and see if it gets some lift. I'm like, well, no, if the glass bauble is this big, we'll have far more lift because there's far more volume to ratio. So then you make it bigger. You can't compare a trinket-making modern glassblower to the potential of 100 giants 120 feet tall using machinery and devilry the likes of which would blow your mind if you could even fathom it. Yeah, there's potential. I might have had a beer or two before writing that. There's far too much lost to modern knowledge and hidden from us that not even I have yet scratched the surface. But at least I've done that. Yeah, contradict myself much. I've scratched the surface. But, barely. This is why I tend to avoid you slow folks, stuck in a mentality that keep you believing you're mentally superior, but can't even recognise the difference in something as simple as a small amount of helium in ratio to a mass as opposed to a massive amount of helium in ratio to a mass. Comment from my lady. To a ratio of far less mass. The ratio matters. So far as the surface bubbles are concerned, I would suggest that multiple layers would have been applied, with the final one cooling so rapidly as the helium was sealed in, that the rapid cooling as it rose into the frigid upper atmosphere caused the bubbles to give that appealing natural look and fool all humanity for thousands of years. Better click on show more replies here because Fred Knotts. This one is worth reading because this is quite interesting. I don't blame your son for disowning you. You're a sad, pathetic little man. Unlike Fight the Flat Earth, who just makes a euphemism about you dying, I wouldn't be upset at all if you drowned tomorrow. The less stupid on this globe, the better for humanity. If you were any less useless, you still wouldn't be worth feeding to the pigs. You are a perfect example of how stupid someone can be and still survive by autonomous functions. I was raised to respect my elders if they deserve the respect, and you, ya bum, deserve nothing but ridicule. Now kindly shut the fuck up and let those of us know what the fuck is going on in the world run it and sit back and enjoy the fruits of our labour like a good loser. It's got 21 likes and a love from Craig for that one. Isn't that just lovely? These Globers are such lovely people. Fred Knotts, you're not really worthy of a response, but my son disowning me? What the fuck are you on about, mate? Him and I are best mates. I posted a video recently just to show him and I jumping off a cliff. His girlfriend took the video and she's probably not the greatest photographer ever. I gave her a bit of a hard time for that because, stupid bitch. But no, Kaylin, you're cool. Love ya. So, thinking that my son has disowned me? Ridiculous, mate. I don't know where you come off with that bullshit. My kids are awesome. I've got the best kids ever. Young adults, all of them. Sweetest, most nicest, friendliest, beautiful people you can imagine. So don't go trying telling me that my son has disowned me. For fuck's sake. Yeah. Raised to respect your elders, well, mate. I'll tell you what you'd get from this elder. As if I'm even old. Middle-aged at best. You get a fucking flat smacking. Or you end up flat on your ass. Simple as that. Lisa Irwin thinks it's funny when I talk Secret of the Ages. Well, The book is on my channel. I've read it out in 3 parts. You can listen to it for yourself, or you can find it at your library and read it for yourself. And just go and ridicule that, what you don't understand, for fuck's sake. This one's worth reading out, because I responded to Helium Phoenix, because he's talking on and on about angular resolution and so on. And I thought, well, this needs to be defined. It hasn't been properly defined. So I says to him, well, I agree that the definition of a word generally has a recognised common understanding. You'd find that most, if not all, have multiple meanings. When you combine words to make a new reference, it's open to even more interpretation. Your definition of angular resolution could just as easily be defined by the single word resolution. When we apply angular to it when discussing perspective of distant objects as viewed from various heights but same distance, the word angular becomes very applicable. Your mediocre ability to apply adaptation to terms to fit the conditions is typical of the rigid-minded, indoctrinated dweeb who can never think outside the box or for themselves. Quaig's own evidence proved the point of the first comment, which was perfectly accurate to begin with. And then he showed images of how change of viewing height makes it work. If that's not a better example of angular resolution, then sorry, what is it? Curvature? LOL. Okay, yeah, I want to scroll through this because there's one I really want to get through to and find, and it's just not worth my time reading through them all. Take me forever and ever and ever. No, that's not it. I might read it anyway because it's called Reto.the.sci-fi fan 1 week ago at Ross Thatcher. I know you live in a different kind of world, but, well, no, I don't. I live in the same world. I just perceive it differently because I spend time thinking about it. Your claim about the sky is so wrong and stupid it shows you never, ever took long exposure pictures from the night sky. Well, that's true. I stand out there for an hour at a time, sometimes taking long exposure pictures with my eyes. Ah, Gonzo the Great's back here, get off the piss. Fuck you, mate. I'm getting on it. And I'll do that so long as I shall live. Because that is what makes me me. Now, where were we? No, I've never taken long exposure pictures of the night sky. I look at the night sky with me peepers. There is no black. Well, that's a first for me. Okay, I guess everything is an exposure issue where the stars are glowing, which appears to make the background black. There is no glass, no obsidian, just stars, billions of them. Well, I don't know where it's coming from with this. I just suggested that perhaps the moon is made out of something glass-like, obsidian-like, something molten that was formed into this hollow sphere that was put up there to mock us for the fact that we once had an eternal sun that we saw 24/7 from everywhere on Earth. And this is just a reminder of how far the destruction has happened on this plane that we live on the ruins of. The more you expose your time, you use, the more stars will appear. Fair enough. But there is a catch. You need to counter the 15-degree-hour rotation of the Earth, or you get start training. I can't even understand his English. So you need a mount to counter this. I doubt you have enough brain cells to figure out how to get one. You talk a lot of nonsense and made up words. I and millions of others actually go out and look at stuff and really see for ourselves, like with a camera and a telescope, and take pictures of the night sky. So again, for you in short, there is no dome-like structure, or barrier, or magical sky daddy land. Well, sci-fi fan. When have I ever proposed that there is actually a dome or a dome-like structure or barrier or magical sky daddy land? I've suggested there are other dimensions from which perhaps there is something we might loosely call a sky daddy, if that's what makes you happy to think of it as. But I suspect it's something more akin to a giant, massive, unfathomable, glowing bright white light of infinite consciousness that nothing can withstand in its presence, which is why then there are layers built up around it thicker and thicker and thicker until finally we get this physical dimension where we are capable of existing in, and that the sun is a bit of a portal, a window into this perhaps higher dimension, where some of that light trickles through, that is the life giver here on the physical plane, but it's got nothing to do with a magical sky daddy land. So people who talk like that aren't even worth talking about. No, I'm not part of any flat earth society. You know, we consider them controlled opposition. Flat earth society are meaningless to us. We truthers independently think for ourselves. We talk amongst ourselves, we develop our own ideas, we share them, we discuss things, we disagree on a lot of things, and basically, I'm just an independent, doing my own thing, speaking my own truth, and yeah, I'm a member of lots of different flat earth groups on Facebook, but it doesn't mean that I'm one of the gang that think like everybody else does. I'm 100% independent, and I wouldn't join a flat earth society even if they invited me. It's just not my thing, you know. This is what I do. My own thinking, independent. So, Gonzo the Muppet. I want to see if I can find Helium Phoenix. He was good. I responded to quite a few of his. No, I don't want to do that. I want to read more. Show more replies. That's the one I want. As I say, I could be here for hours just trying to find the one I'm looking to. Oh. No, that's not it. This is going to be pretty boring until I do find it. That's why every now and then I might just read some of these. Here we go. Ulrich Annelvoldsen. Look at Ross trolling everyone. It's useless to debate him, as it is with anyone in a cult. And yes, Flat Earth is a cult. A cult created by a bunch of con artists, Sergeant, Jeranism, and the head fraud Eric Dubai. Eric is not his real name. There's plenty of evidence that they have planned this Flat Earth hoax and put it in motion to make money. See them now on Netflix, and their plan is to get their own shows. Maybe our focus should be on exposing the con rather than the obvious fallacy that is Flat Earth. Wow. So hardly even trolling anybody, mate. I'm just telling it how it is. You know, obviously I have to scroll past millions of you bloody trolls. If people are making money from doing what they love, isn't that what life is all about? If you don't like it, you don't support it. If you do like it, and you feel like contributing towards supporting it, go for it. You know, it's a free world. Anybody can support what they want. And if they're finding value out of what they're supporting, and they think that these people are adding to the truth of what we're understanding, we're advancing in our knowledge bit by bit by bit. You know, we've only been doing this for like 5 years, as opposed to the 500 years the globalists have had of pushing forth their model onto us from infancy, from young age. From the moment we enter school, compulsory education, you know, this was pushed upon us. Flat Earth isn't pushing it upon anybody. We're just putting forth a new idea, a new concept, and suggesting, hey, things aren't as we were told. We're not freaking brainwashing or indoctrinating anybody. We're just asking the questions that need to be asked and offering perhaps solutions that people haven't thought of before. If we're wrong, we're wrong. But I tell you what, nearly everything in science over the hundreds of years that we've had science has been proven wrong, is constantly proven wrong, as science is always all about. So science is always constantly evolving. Why would you believe something from 2,500 years ago from some bloke looking down a well and measuring shadows of sticks as being equivalent to modern science? When we can get a modern zoom lens camera and view images or view islands hundreds of miles away in some cases. You know, nearly 300 miles is the top record picture from one mountain peak to another. On a globe Earth, those mountain peaks would be going away from each other. From up in aeroplanes of infrared photography, we can view 500 or more miles. These things should be impossible on a globe. These are the things that modern technology is showing to us. Just the fact that we can fly a plane and land it on a runway, with a runway going north-south at 1,000 miles per hour, opposite to the direction the plane is landing on, it's impossible. And yet it happens every day, happens all the time, proving the movement of the Earth is just nonsense. The Baltic I think I can completely ignore. These are all still 1 week ago. I think it was a bit less than 1 week ago. Hey, Mr. United for the Children chimed in here. He got a love from Craig as well. And he got a thumb up from me because he says, don't forget resolution limit either. That's why things seem to disappear bottom up. Diffraction limit. Watch Red Pill philosophy. He pawns all these balltards with that high IQ fact. That's right, Red Pill, you do. And funnily enough, Craig just goes through and loves every comment without even reading them. I don't think he can even read. When you watch him typing, he is completely useless at typing. He can't string a coherent sentence together. He can't type a single word in without having to edit multiple times. And to me, that is a indicator of a person's intelligence as to how well they can type, write, communicate with one another, how well they understand the written word, how well they can communicate it to one another. Quaig is just absolutely freaking useless. I believe he sits there now with his wife to write the comments for him as he dictates them, so that there's not so many ridiculously pathetic typos in them. Tail Gunner 30 UK. This must be another one of his Navy buddies. At Ross Thatcher. Oh Ross, I am utterly convinced you have fully received the fate you truly deserve. You are a non-entity on the internet blathering nonsense and vitriol about subjects you are demonstrably ill-equipped to discuss, shaking your fist and bellowing impotent rage at the clouds. Oh, you clouds! I don't think I've ever done that, mate. I love the clouds. I go out and talk with the clouds. I can shapeshift with the clouds, should I choose. Like them. I see things in the clouds, as I see things in the stars, as I see things in the night sky. I don't bellow impotent rage at the clouds. I'm in tune with nature. I go out walking all the time. I don't know why you think I am bellowing impotent rage at the clouds. I might respond to a few impotent idiots trying to fight the flat earth with their ridiculous channels, their ridiculous delusional beliefs that they're intelligent because they can understand big numbers and can quote theories and equations. Obviously my brain's already tuning out because I'm on a track looking for something else. Okay, I'll read Paladin's just because it's there. So, having skimmed through this comment thread, I've come to the not-so-shocking conclusion that you're another flat earther who only understands cherry-picked science without actually bothering to look anything else up. But hey, let's put your proposed model to the test with 2 very simple questions. Both of them are answered by our current understanding of our solar system. So if you're going to debunk the current model, you're not only going to have to answer them with your own, but answer them in a way that makes more sense and accounts for all observed facts of our world. Explain to me how we're able to fall back down to the ground on a flat Earth when the bulk of the proposed models do not have the mass or shape to generate a proper gravitational field. Also, explain how the Sun is able to remain intact with the size your model proposes for it. Well, rather than just read that one off the cuff, I think I might just skim through here because I think I already responded to it. Maybe not. At least Meredith Wilson's there. Thanks, Meredith. Good job, Russ. Keep stocking it to the Globetards. I'm pretty sure I responded to it somewhere down the track here, because I don't get online all the time. It's a fair way down if it is. Maybe Craig deleted that one, I don't know. I don't think he normally does. No, I think I was away for a day or two. Anyway, I'll just keep scrolling for a bit because I want to find this long one that I could not be bothered addressing in a response, but he was very insistent. Only loads up 10 at a time, so I'm just going to scroll through them. Here it is. Aladdin, 1337. Or was it 133.7? Interesting, because that's got 17 around 33. I'm a little bit into numbers as well, and 33 is quite a powerful number. You obviously jumped to conclusions very prematurely. I can only wonder if you actually have one that your girlfriend would be equally disappointed in your abilities in other fields as well. Just skimmed through the comments, huh? And this means you know what I know. Let me give you a clue. I know everything you think you know and much, much more. I wouldn't dare go out on the line and make such ludicrous claims that the moon may well have been sourced from the Grand Canyon if I hadn't done my research which allows me to even suggest such a thing. Anyway, you think you have some original questions. Well, they've been answered 100 times or more already. But you think you're special and deserve special attention. So here we go. Explain to me how we're able to fall back down to the ground on a flat Earth when the bulk of the proposed models... Oh, shut up about rockets. Don't be stupid. They go up and they fall back down. Explain to me how we're able to fall back down to the ground on a flat Earth when the bulk of the proposed models do not have the mass or shape to generate a proper gravitational field. My response says, density and buoyancy have been well explained already. There's no such thing as gravitational fields. That's moronic fantasy which requires far greater dark forces to counteract it on your universal scale. All examples of attractional mass show objects coming together with greater impact and sticking fast, not dancing around forever like your model of a moon, somehow being repelled and attracted at free fall speed and somehow remaining a more or less constant distance away. If a mass is greater than the medium it's in, it drops. The medium of air is far too insufficient in density to give buoyancy to mass that hasn't got wings to defy it, and some sort of propulsion method to remain buoyant. Heat also works, as do gases like helium or hydrogen. Otherwise, a mass will simply take the path of least resistance to find a place of buoyancy, such as the solid ground, or in some cases even water. If the mass is too dense for water, it also sinks. Very straightforward and obvious to even a 5-year-old. Also, explain how the sun is able to remain intact with the size your model proposes for it. Because you are so low to the ground and your apparition of the sun remains constant to you because it only appears due to atmospheric height, which is constant even if distance causes it to appear low on the horizon to you. You've obviously not even attempted to understand perspective. You've not investigated my series of explanations I've already published called Thatcher's Law of Perspective, which did get extended to explain such matters. If you're in the middle of the path of an approaching plane, it appears to be going straight up. As it goes away, it appears to go straight down. The sun is even higher, hence what is said to go in a pyramid line, whereby all sun worship and pyramids are related in some way. Even the Freemasonic symbol shows how this works, with a set square, showing how the land appears to rise up. The sun takes the compass line, the all-seeing eye, and the person of knowledge is always on the level. So, I think I've addressed that. I'm still going to find this one comment so that I can had a good conversation. I will put up this link in the once I edit this thing, so you can read through all these comments yourself if you could be bothered. There's a shitload of them. Seek professional help. This is from Common Sense. Seek professional help. Like, you know, if you pay someone to help you, that's going to be far more helpful than helping yourself. That's, of course, if there's any cognitive function they can work with. Your delusions and mistrust in those who have studied for years, myself included, and have demonstrably proven every conspiratard assertion to be complete nonsense is affecting your ability to form clear, rational conclusions. What is ludicrous is your infantile inability to grasp basic orbital mechanics. Well, yeah. basic orbital mechanics, yeah, you're right. You're dead right. I can't grasp it. I cannot grasp how a ball hurtling around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour can have another ball staying a constant distance around it in free fall motion, called the moon, as we're hurtling towards the moon at times, repelling it away, and then attracting it as we're going away from it, and everything in between as it's on various sides of us, staying a constant distance from us. I can't grasp that at all. So if you'd like to explain how the moon works, because Quaid from Fight the Flat Earth on my first introduction to live debates on Non Sequitur show number 9 could not explain it. He thinks it's down some gravity well. He says that's how it stays in place. It's in a gravity well. Somehow this well stays around us the whole time. It's just, it's obviously got a bottom to it, and so it stays in this well for reasons. Red's rhetoric says, well, think of it as though it's on a platform in a vacuum of space. It's on the platform. Made no sense either. I hit them both up for a rational explanation for it, and they just kept changing the topic, deflecting. That's what liars do when they're caught out in a lie, and they're asked a question they cannot even come close to giving you a rational answer for. So, if you want to explain orbital mechanics of the moon for me, be my guest. Common sense. My quick response was, okay, Dick, prove the ground you're standing on is moving faster than the speed of sound. I can wait. That sort of shut him up nice and quickly. A lot more trolls. No, we didn't want to click on reply. We wanted to click on see more comments. Oh, that was me said that. I won't read it then. Yeah, Paladin, you kept trolling. Show more replies. I have a question for you. Maybe this is the one. No. Well, this is a good one actually. Jeffrey Brown does ask, I have a question for you. Why do the northern and southern star trails maintain their circular shape no matter where you are on the planet? And why they don't take on an elliptical shape as you move away from the North Pole? If you mention perspective, how does that play in the above observed phenomenon? Well, I'd like to know that myself actually. How does that work on the globe? Like, I can understand if you're at the North Pole looking up at Polaris, all the stars would make a perfect circle around it, but as you went thousands of miles away from it, the stars should actually be making elliptical paths if they were viewed from you on a fixed point on a spinning ball. Now, I've put this same proposition to multiple people multiple times, and nobody ever comes back to me with a reasoned logical response, or even tries to do the experiment. So you might be the first, Mr. Jeffrey Brown. Let's just assume that's your real name, Mr. Brown. Put a camera on the side of a globe. Set the globe on a little motor so that it just spins once every 24 hours. Just the once. Fix that camera at a fixed point directly above the North Pole, and show me how everything else around that fixed point makes perfect circles. And while you're at it, stick another camera and do the same for the South Pole as you believe, and you keep spouting is only possible on a globe Earth. You should be able to do it twice at the same time. You won't even be able to do it once, I guarantee you. For the very same reason that you think the spinning ball creates the sunrise and sunset, moonrise and moonset, the stars are going to do exactly the same thing. They're all going to travel in straight lines. Now, they might go a little bit elliptical around this fixed point, assuming you're going to even find a fixed point. But then, of course, you're going to bring up all sorts of excuses. Oh, yeah, but Polaris is billions and billions of light years away, and all the other stars are billions of light years away, and therefore there's nothing far enough away. I don't care. It should still be possible to do, to show on a small scale in your model how these things are making perfect circles around a fixed point with a single camera fixed on that point from anywhere on your globe, because this is what you say we are doing in reality from the globe. So show us how it's done, because not anybody has ever stepped up to that challenge. And if I had $1 million to offer, I would offer it, but I don't. So just do it and prove me wrong, and then we'll leave it at that. Somebody says, why doesn't Ross Thatcher reply? Well, because Ross Thatcher actually has a life. He doesn't spend his whole time on the internet. Rodney McLaughlin says, and he edited it, "Hi Ross, earlier I called you obnoxious, but I think I was wrong. Rereading comments, I suspect you were just lashing out because you felt attacked. While some of your comments to Craig were obnoxious, it's clear you've been on the receiving end yourself. If we play the game of attacking the ideas, not the person, then I'm sure everyone's blood pressure will drop. Anyway, I don't mean to sound condescending, I just want you to know that I personally don't despise you despite what I wrote earlier. Keep rocking that beard and keep the nutcase average high in Australia." Oh, didn't see that. And because it makes New Zealand look good. So good on you, Rodney McLaughlin. You know, there's somebody who can stand on his principles and say, yeah, he recognises that I am constantly under personal attack. And so, yeah, sometimes a good offence is a good defence. Other times, well, you just take it on the chin and move on. And get on with it, you know. It's not, I don't really care for all these people comments, you know, there's so many, you know, butt hurt much, blah blah, there's so many of them. Craig says, you know, Craig McNeil this is, who owns the Fight the Flat Earth channel. Ross, do you ever get tired of being wrong? What's being? I think it means being. You have to interpret everything he ever types because he can't. I think you owe it to your legion of followers. I don't have a legion of followers. I don't have any. You know, I've got a few people I call friends and subscribers who like to follow me, whether they agree with me or not. They still, you know, respect me as I respect them. You know, that's what we do with one another. You don't just respect somebody because you agree with them. In fact, you know, I respect people more because I disagree with them, but they've got grounds to stand on. You globeheads don't have any grounds to stand on. We've proven you wrong time and time again, and so you're not worthy of respect. Pretty sure it's time for round 2, so I can put you in the ground for good. Now, we could call that a figure of speech, just as we could call him saying, I will fucking crucify you, this will be a second round of crucifixions, and all the other bullshit that he rambled on with, trying to big note himself. We think, Craig, you've got some serious mental issues. They can clearly be seen in pretty much anything you produce. Scrolling. I really do want to find this. Oh, Jeffrey Brown linked to this one, Flat Earth is a cult WordPress. I read about half of that. I couldn't go any further. It's just the same old nonsense. It's not a cult. If we were a cult, who's our leader? Do we all give money to a cult leader? Do we mass together? No. Independent truthers are where it's at. You know, a lot of flat earthers are still unsure of where they stand. But some of us who've been doing this for like 3 decades or more, as I have done, coming to flat earth was really the ultimate in truth. I might have to put some music on in a second and have a quick break, I think, because this beer's nearly empty. I think it's coming up soon. These all still say 1 week ago. There's just hundreds of them. You make one comment on one Globe Trolls channel, Fight the Flat Earth, and you could be up here for weeks and weeks trying to find them all. I just know that there was one in here who took himself pretty seriously. Why won't you answer my questions? You might even put him on my channel for all I know. I can't find it. Brenda Rua says, ha 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 ha. Too funny, dude. Ross triggered, Thatcher exposed. I actually responded to that one. Brenda Rua. 335 replies and only yours shows. Because that's what happens when you look on your phone. Far too much data and scrolling to read through the rest. You may call me triggered if you wish. This truth movement is the greatest consciousness shift in human history. And you bet I'm passionate about it. I abhor fools and retards deliberately standing in the way of it, and worse, actually fighting it. This legend in his own lounge room really gets under my skin in a dozen different ways. Go to my channel and watch how I school him in some manners. I believe no one should speak to another on a live debate in a way they never would in person. I showed the girly coward how that would go down for him in a one-on-one situation in real life. I'm not a violent person ordinarily, but I'm no girly coward hiding behind the internet skirt either. So I must have scrolled past this one because, oh no, we're coming up to 6 days ago. Some of these are worth reading, but save them for another day. I'm sure it's not planned. I think it might have been this guy. Yes, I have found it. John Lee Pettimore 3. Maybe what I'll do is have a brief interlude. Put on a wee bit of music for you. Something that can't be copyright striked, of course. That one's a good one as any. Might have to turn it down a little bit. Skip the ad in 3, 2, 1. Skip ad. And we'll just carry on from there for a moment. I'll be right back. Alright, well, thanks for hanging around. Those who decided to hang around. Hopefully this one's not going to go silly. It's going to go silly. Go around those. Okay. Alright, I'll turn this down a little bit. Where was I? Oh, don't tell me they're refreshing again. No, okay. So this is basically what I really wanted to address was John Lee Pettimore 3, 5 days ago. No flatty has ever been able to answer my questions. They only run away crying and leaving a trail of urine. Wow. This must be a big, brave globe head. He probably asked so many inane questions that who could be bothered answering every single one of your questions? And every single one of them is almost a textbook bloody thing in itself. I mean, oops, must have hit the camera switch button. Can I answer these questions? I actually did respond to him and I said, yes, I can. And left it at that. And I might need to bring this just a slight tad closer so I can read a bit better. After all, Quag does call me grandfather dumbass. Explain how tides are supposed to work on a flat earth. Well, first of all, I think that's a ridiculous question because tides do work as they do work, as we observe. I'd actually prefer to counter that with another question and ask him to explain how do tides work on a globe Earth. You've got one moon with one mass. Now, regardless of how full it appears to us, because of the amount of sunlight shining on it, which I do believe illuminates the moon, I know illuminates the moon, it's still the same mass. Now, if you've only got one mass with one gravitational pull, according to your conventional heliocentric model, then how the hell do you get two tides in one day? Now, you're claiming that the bulge that's pulling this side somehow creates an opposite bulge on the other side repulsing it. I guess that kind of comports with the reality of the Earth repulsing the moon when we're heading towards it, but we attract it when we're heading away from it. Yeah, it really makes no sense whatsoever. The way we see it on the flat Earth is the moon and the sun both have some sort of electromagnetic force, and the electromagnetic force is what keeps them buoyant, so to speak, by repulsion. And that repulsive force is pushing down with an equal and opposite sort of force, which therefore, due to the electromagnetic effects of salt water, it is repulsing them, so that the tide is always coming in front of the approaching moon. It is being pushed ahead of it, which then creates, of course, a pocket of depression, which creates then the second tide behind it, equally following in its wake. So that would create the two tides per day. To somehow think that one pull can create two tides doesn't comport with reality whatsoever. The nighttime tides are often higher than the daytime tides, and again that would work because that's where the moon is in your physical location, so it's pushing ahead far stronger than the fill coming in behind it 12 hours later. When we see it on the full moon effect, the full moon tides, especially around the equinoxes, then the sun and moon are working very much in balance with one another and creating a far greater equal push around, which gives us our king tides. As I say, I've been following the tides for years and years and years, and I know, and from personal observation, have seen this going on. Let me shut that up even more. It's annoying. So, how are tides supposed to work on the flat Earth? Well, they'd work the way they work, as we observe them, in front of the full moon, never behind. Second question. Show a single hypothetical flat Earth model that explains current observations of reality. Well, the thing is, the hypothetical flat Earth model doesn't need a model. It is what it is. It shows reality as it is, and it only works at full scale. Because of the scale, because of the vast distances, because of the vastness of everything, it works at that scale. You can't create a model of that and expect it to replicate everything we see in reality. one of the biggest reasons we're told not to make false images or graven images, because perfection is as it is. Go outside and look at the sun. Go outside and look at the ocean. Go outside and look at the moon. Go outside and observe the stars. They exist at the scale they exist at, because you cannot model reality. You cannot model perspective. Every time you get shown a model of perspective, you just laugh at it because it just looks tiny and pathetic, which it really is. It is tiny and pathetic because it's a model. You can't model reality. So why bother? Just get over this idea of needing a model and just observe it for what it is. Spend more time out in nature. Spend more time watching clouds get obscured bottom first by nearby objects like trees or buildings. Start to understand perspective. Start to understand these clouds are much, much further away than the nearby horizon that you can see. It takes years of observation and comprehension to really start to get it, until finally when it all clicks, you go, that's why you can't model it. You cannot model distance without distance. Therefore, you just need to see it in reality. The real distance, the real scale, as it is. Go and watch the sunset. Look at the colours in the sky. Watch as the sky colours recede as the different noble gases are affected differently by the electromagnetic effect of the sun, which stops glowing so bright white blue spectrum and starts getting more into your neon colours, your oranges and reds, and eventually it all fades. It's all happening before your eyes. That is the model. What is the ultimate reason behind this multi-generational, worldwide, intercultural, alleged conspiracy to hide flat Earth? What is the purpose? Well, that's again another big, big question that I could spend an entire 2-hour rant on, should I choose to. You want the answer in a nutshell? What is the ultimate reason? Deception. To fool us. To hide God. That is the ultimate reason behind it all. See, there was once this thing some years back, I think it was back in the 30s, and I may be wrong, where somebody high up in the Vatican reported overhearing a conversation. And he overheard it through a door in another room, where he heard two beings discussing. One sounded very almost demonic, like more and one sounded very Christ-like. And so they're having this discussion. And basically the part that was overheard was the more demonic sounding one was saying, yes, but I just need more time. I just need more time. Give me more time. Give me more time. And of course, this is the way the universe works, is that the Christ-like energies, the angelic entities, they have to give some leeway towards those who petition towards them. And I don't know exactly what's going on, but the way I've interpreted this is that there is a great challenge going on. And what the great deceiver has said, he's made a bet. You play a pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. That fiddle of gold against your soul. I think I'm better than you. We all know that one. But it's a bit bigger than that. A bit more than just a golden fiddle. It's for some reason, Satan has made a deal, maybe because he doesn't want to stay here forever either. And so he says, well, given enough time, I will be able to convert all the children of God into following me and worshipping me as God. And when that day comes, you'll give me whatever it is he wants as a reward. I don't know what that may be. Maybe some freedom to return, to escape from this realm. Maybe they know something about the bliss of being in a higher realm, how much better it may be, and I'm not going to enter into that at this stage, but all I'm saying is that some sort of deal was cut, and that all the devil needs, Satan needs, is more time. And so what he's been doing over all this time has been wiping knowledge. Anybody who dares stand in the way, eliminated, murdered. Now, why does God allow this? Well, ultimately, because God allows free will. Either you consent or you do not consent. And if you do not consent, then you might have to have some pretty powerful weapons to stand up for yourself. And these days, having a powerful two-edged sword doesn't really do much against, say, fighter jets and great explosive weapons that they can fire from them. We're pretty much standing at the end times in a sense. But the way we defeat the great deceiver is simply not to consent. We do not consent. We refuse to bow down before you. We refuse to give up our belief in truth, in life, in love, from the infinite planar Mother Earth to the Father, Son in heaven, who gives us life. We do not believe in your lies. We do not fall for your heliocentric bullshit. You can do whatever you will to punish us, to make life miserable, to crucify us in the most cruel ways possible, as you've been doing for so long. But how many Christians willingly got fed to the lions? Not because they wanted to be fed to the lions, to be martyred. No, but because they refused to deny their beliefs. To deny the truth of who and what we are. So we're a very, very powerful truth movement, doing something far beyond what most globeheads could possibly comprehend when it comes to standing up against this heliocentric lie that's deceiving all of humanity. The Lord of the Rings, Satan, the great deceiver, deceiving all of humanity in a bet. We are the defenders of the truth. Whether or not we pay the ultimate price, I don't know. But I rather think it's the truth that sets us free. Not giving in, not giving up, not saying, well, geez, I'm so unpopular, I think I'll go back to saying I believe we live on a spinning ball going around the sun. Most of the believers in that don't even know what religion they're defending. Heliocentrism. Anyway, let's have a look at the next one. You already asked that one, mate. Why doesn't the observed sky match at all with flat Earth attempts at modelling? It does. You just can't model perspective. When you understand that the stars are so far away as they actually are, then yeah, you'll be able to see them from much further distances, but triangulating them won't work because you're not able to triangulate distance diminution, which means things shrink in the distance. It's something that cannot be measured with visual optics, no matter what equation or formula you use. It just cannot be done because there's too many variables and not enough fixed points to actually measure. You can do it on land, measure 3 fixed points, but you cannot do it in the sky without actually knowing the size and distance of, say, a star, a sun, the moon. We don't know the distance of any of them, the size of any of them. All of them are educated guesses and all of them could be entirely just as wrong as the next. So the sky does match at all with Flat Earth's attempts at modelling. What it doesn't match is globe Earth attempts at modelling, because the globe Earth says that the planet Earth is going around the sun once per year. So why, when you're looking out at all the different stars, would all the constellations remain constant? They wouldn't. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. It's just like looking at 3 different trees in a field from one point, walking 100 metres down the field and looking at those 3 different trees again and thinking they're still going to make the exact same apparition of a constellation as we see in our stars, all because of distance. Any amount of distance change is going to change some amount of parallax. So why doesn't the observed sky match at all with globe Earth attempts at modelling, mate? Who are we talking to again? John Lee Pettimore 3. What causes lunar and solar eclipses in the flat Earth conjecture? Well, it's not a conjecture. They're 2 completely different phenomena. Let's start with solar eclipse, because it's quite simple. The moon goes around above us once every 24 hours and 50 minutes. The sun goes around us once every 24 hours. So every day we'll see the moon rise almost an hour later per day, which means that the sunlit part of the moon is getting closer and closer to the sun every day, which causes the phases till eventually you get a new moon phase. Every once in a while, this new moon coincidentally just happens to be the exact same size as the sun, and it will appear to block the path of the sun's light in between us observing it down here far below and the sun. It doesn't do it very often, once every couple of years maybe. That gives you a solar eclipse. You cannot see the new moon because the lit part of the moon is not visible in daylight hours. The lit part is just bright enough to shine through the glowing or illuminated atmospheric gases. That's why we can see portions of the moon at daytime, but only the lit portion. You can always hold up a white ball or a ball in front of the moon anytime you see it at daytime and see it makes the exact same shadow, for they're still saying that it's self-illuminating. But when it's too close to the sun, it blocks out the sun. That's a solar eclipse. Pretty simple. Not really deep, it's just common sense observation, I reckon. Then, when we have a lunar eclipse, this gets a little bit deeper. Okay, the lunar eclipse. First of all, without really even knowing what the sun and moon really are, it's pretty hard to go into explaining in depth as to what really happens during a lunar eclipse. But let's just make it nice and simple. But I propose that when the moon was made, there was other experimental moons that didn't exactly work the way they were intended to work. And that at least one of them, potentially more, the Chinese sort of think of a body of 6 to 8 different invisible celestials going around the sun. Or should I say, following the sun. And this is where their mythology of the dragon comes into play, is that the dragon is the fiery head of the dragon. You know, and then these celestial bodies follow along behind it, a bit kind of like a centipede. But the tail of it is the one we know of as Rahu, which to me, so far as I'm concerned, is the only one we really need to concern ourselves with. It is another moon that failed to go into orbit the way we expected it to. And so it basically trailed the sun, or trails the sun, the whole time. Occasionally we do see glimpses of it at sunset, and I've seen multiple pictures actually. I do have a copy somewhere, but it'll take me forever to find. But it looks like a second sun. And so often people say there's 2 suns, and this is called the black sun, the dark sun. It's got multiple names, but Rahu is basically another moon-sized object that trails the sun. And the reason we can't see it ordinarily is because it's just like with the new moon. You can't see the new moon because the lit side is facing the sun. But if it was behind the sun, like Rahu often is, occasionally you'll see it, as a second sun. But it's just really another moon. And so once in a while, as we get to our new moon phase, this Rahu comes and blocks the sunlight between it and the moon. The moon is always up sufficiently high that the sun never sets for it. That's why I sort of think that it was created as a way of mocking us, because the sun used to never set for us. But now that it does, because the continents are being split asunder, the moon, obviously being up that high, is always in sunlight. And when this body called Rahu comes between sun and moon, as we see during a lunar eclipse, this weird shadow comes across from the side or from the top. Not like you'd expect if the sun was below behind us and the earth is directly in between. It should come either directly from the bottom or directly from the top, depending on how they decide to work this celestial crapola. But either way, the shadow never comes from where you'd expect. The first lunar eclipse I ever saw showed the shadow come from the top left side of the moon, coming across and slowly darkening, and I thought, hang on a second, I've got a really good bead on how heliocentrism works. The moon's rising in front of us in the east, the sun's set behind us in the west, the shadow should be coming directly up. No, it came from the top left across at an angle. That's how I know it has to be a third celestial body. There's just simply no other way about it. And so that's our lunar eclipse. So I will just quickly look at that comment, because half human, half zombie says, nice art I have there. I don't really have any art. Oh, you mean that poster I've had for years and years of someone gaining enlightenment in a Buddhist trance? Even Jesus went through the same schools of knowledge as what this young fellow is doing. There's no competition. Everybody's trying to reach enlightenment. And Buddhism is a nice, peaceful way of trying to find it. In fact, that's what brought me back to the Christ was, I grew up Christian, Catholic, and just slowly walked away from it. Didn't interest me at all. As I started getting into Eastern mysticism and reading about Zen Buddhism and practicing some of the methods, it returned me back to Christ consciousness and realised, of course, that's all Christ was ever doing. He was seeking enlightenment through whatever methods are applicable. And all of them have to do with turning to nature, to finding yourself in nature and observing nature, not reading books and believing dogma. Anyway, I didn't want to have a religious discussion. I just thought I'd tell you. I have that posted. Did you see the other one? I'll read it for you if you like. Look up treason in the sky, geoengineering, climate change, chemtrails, dumping poison from planes, contact your local member. Well, you've all seen what contacting your local member does. Okay, his next question. How can people in the southern hemisphere annulus, /annulus, be looking in completely different directions yet still be looking at the same sky features? Well, I don't even really know what you're trying to say here, mate. We see completely different sky features. We see the Southern Cross. You don't. You see the Big Dipper. I don't think that's Orion. I think it's a different thing. But we see completely different features. We don't see Polaris down here. You don't see the Southern Cross from up there. So I think that's a really dumb question. I'll just move on from that one. Explain the problems with measuring Australia. Okay, well, it's really fucking big, mate. Really, really big. Now, fair enough on your globe-oriented maps, where everything that you've measured takes place based on the magnetic centre with bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger latitude lines, which are just circles going around it according to a compass, which is what you use to draw circles, you know, a compass. Remember that? You put the sharp part in the middle of your circle, and you draw a line, and it becomes a circle. Then you open it up a bit, draw another one, that's your latitude lines, and you're making a bigger circle every time. So obviously you're distorting the true image if you're going to keep basing it on that pattern to try and measure the size of continents outside the equator. Hence why even your great astrophysicists like, oh, that Tyson bloke, that it goes pear-shaped below the equator, and yet they still try and tell us there's no up and down in space. Yeah, that's really clever. Below the equator. How can Antarctica be circumnavigated if it is supposed to be a ring? I mean, that's a really dumb question as well. First of all, modern day circumnavigation doesn't circumnavigate the inner ring of Antarctica. It never even comes close. It's too dangerous. It's too impossible. It took Captain Cook 3 years to attempt to do it, and he failed. And he charted over 60,000 miles of Antarctic icefall. There's no saying he ever got back to where he started. But after 3 years and 8 days, he gave up in utter frustration. He failed. You cannot circumnavigate Antarctica. I'd love to see somebody try. It's just completely not possible. You can visit certain locations of it, you can go to certain places of it, but all they really do in these races, where they say that they're circumnavigating, is they're continent hopping around, you know, the tip of South Africa, down to bottom of Western Australia, maybe down around Tasmania, up to New Zealand, across the Santiago or whatever the bottom of Chile is. They're just continent hopping all around. They never even go close to Antarctica, except maybe once where they might hit upon it. And even then, that's still not evidence of Antarctic navigation or circumnavigation. And so your question, how can Antarctica be circumnavigated if it is supposed to be a ring, is once again a really, really silly question. You got a ring, you can circumnavigate the inside of it. What's the problem? Where are Venus and Mercury located in the flat Earth model? Okay, he's asking a series of questions in this one question. Let's just read through them all, shall we? Where are Venus and Mercury located in the flat Earth model? If the Sun is only supposed to be a couple of thousand miles away, clouds, Venus and Mercury would be between Earth and Sun. Where are they? How can you jam clouds, Moon, Venus and Mercury in that small space without them seriously disturbing each other? Okay, well that's making a lot of assumptions. First of all, we've got no idea exactly how far the Sun is. We don't know exactly what Venus and Mercury are. If they are between us and the Sun, then they're obviously much smaller and much nearer than what your heliocentric model suggests they are. I wouldn't suggest for a second that any of the stars are closer than the Sun. Back engineering is their golden goose. Yeah, they back engineer everything from what we actually see. The clouds, I would imagine, are like 3 to 5 miles away at most times. That seems to purport with reality, and that's why you can see them much further away than what you can see your actual ground horizon, which is only 3 to 4 miles away when you're standing at the ocean. So you might see clouds halfway across your field of view casting shadows on objects on the horizon because the clouds are visible from much further away because they're so much higher. Imagine again how much higher are the stars and the Sun and the Moon. I'd love to know exactly how far away they are, but I'm not going to go and hazard a guess based on false assumptions and false knowledge. I would say they're much, much closer than we're told, but there's still a lot of room. I mean, if you consider that the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Saudi Arabia, is 1/2 of a mile high. They can fit a heck of a lot of stories in that. How many stories can they fit between the sun and the moon? Fire a high-powered laser from an elevated position at the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse at Cape Hatteras, NC, USA, to an equally elevated position at Green Point Lighthouse at Cape Town, South Africa. If flat Earth is true, flat earthers should be able to detect it easily. Where's my oven gloves? Honestly, that's just crazy. I mean, you can't barely detect a laser 5 miles away, 10, 15 miles away across a lake. It works, but you got no idea about atmospheric scattering. How everything gets scattered by the atmosphere, especially over distance. There are limitations of height view, which I've already sort of just basically explained. You can see 3 to 4 miles, 5 miles tops over the ocean, because perspective is actually a real thing. Oh, that was nice and warm. Why are all other celestial bodies spheroid and only Earth is flat, if that's what you're claiming? Well, no, I'm not claiming that at all. I've never claimed other celestial bodies are spheroid whatsoever. Sometimes when you look into the distance and you see a truck approaching, you'll see one light, one orb of light. And this truck is only a couple of miles away. As it gets nearer and nearer, you can start to make out more and more lights of it. You can see lights down the body, you can see 2 distinct headlights, and when it's right near you, you can really make out all these different lights. But when it's distant, it appears like one spheroidal light. So why would I assume for 1 second that a single star that I can see 100, 200, 300, 500, who knows how many miles away, why would I even assume that it is a single point of light in the first place? It might be multiple hundreds of different lights all joined together in one familiar celestial heavenly body, creating this choir of angels, as sometimes I like to call it. The harmonic frequency, I think that's the right term. This vibrational frequency, like sonar luminescence. Sonar luminescence is sound vibrating at a certain frequency, creating underwater light. Why would the stars be any different? You know, if these are thousands upon thousands of angelic beings all singing in a harmonic choir at once, that could be creating the glow of flashing stars we see. That's all I can say about that for now. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just suggesting with an open mind there's a possibility that this is what a star is. A single star could be billions of departed souls working as one body, living in this harmonic frequency of pure and utter bliss that creates light. It's a better idea than them being glowing balls of gas. But they assume that they're spherical or spheroid. That is a huge assumption, just because what we see of the moon shows it to be spheroidal. Doesn't mean that anything else is at all spheroidal. And if it is, well, that's an assumption. It's an assumption you've made. It's not something I've ever claimed. I'm not claiming that only the Earth is flat. I'm just saying that the physical planar Earth that we are upon has got nothing to do with the appearance of the lights in the sky, any more than looking at the lights in your ceiling describes the shape of your floor, or that as I say, the balls on the pool table prove the shape of the table. It's all just common sense. But you don't look at one thing and assume another. Crazy. Show us the mathematics to back up your claims of flat Earth celestial movement. Come on. Let's just look at what we see and call it what we see and leave it at that. mathematics, people seeking formulas and equations. I mean, what sort of concept is that? What are you, some sort of alchemist? What's the formula? We need the secret formula. Oh, here we go. He talks about the Burj Khalifa here. In the Burj Khalifa, on the higher floors, the sun can still be seen for several minutes after it is set for those at ground level. This has led Dubai clerics to rule that those living above the 80th floor should wait 2 additional minutes to break their Ramadan fast, and those living above the 150th floor, 3 minutes. If the earth is supposed to be flat, explain this. Self-evident, isn't it? Higher up you are, the further you can see. So as the sun recedes into the distance, you'll see it further away. I mean, if the earth was a spinning ball, how do you explain that? The spinning ball is this really big ball, right? That's obviously spinning at your 1,000 miles an hour to create the illusion of the sunset, or the reality of a sunset. So the higher floors should actually be further away from the sun as it tilts away, and or just as far as the people at the bottom. There's no reason why being higher up on a ball spinning away, where the sun is set, would have a longer sunset. So that's like one of the dumbest arguments ever. It's the same one I used against Red's rhetoric on the non sequitur Flatter night, whatever they call it, show number 10, is that if you sent a drone further up on a setting spinning ball, going further up is actually going further away from the setting sun, not further back over the curve to see it. You know, it might give you a minimal split-second view, but at 1,000 miles per hour rising up at whatever slow rate these things move at, you're not going to be going back over the curvature to see the sun again, to see it set again and again, just by gaining altitude. Because on a sphere, gaining altitude is perpendicular to the curve. It's not going angular back up away from the curve to see back around it again. So the Burj Khalifa actually only works on the flat earth. Think that'll do for now. If you can answer any of these, or know someone that can, post here and tag me. I'll check back in and see what you got. Oh, and no, just research it. Cop-outs. You're making these claims. No, you're trying to put words in my mouth, mate. Support them. I think I'm asking some pretty basic questions that should be answered before anyone should even begin to take the flat earth hypothesis seriously. No pun intended, but the ball is in your court now. So this bloke calls himself John Lee Pettimore 3. There you go, I've answered them for you. I know you've been very demanding, but that's a lot of shit to have to sit down and type out in one response. And if I did actually sit down and type them out, I'd probably overuse the number of things we can... Oh, you hit me up straight away again. Still waiting for the answers to my questions, or you admit that you got nothing. So I think that's basically covered what I came here to do. Maybe I'll just read this one, just for the hell of it. This is my comment 5 days ago to @Paladin, or Paladin 1337. Once again, you are being a supercilious, ignorant twat, making up bullshit about me simply because you don't understand it. I never once mentioned anything religious. You're simply confusing esoteric knowledge, Gnosticism, and hidden history with several terms some religions might sometimes apply to some of their teachings. As a truther and philosopher, the pursuit of the knowledge of truth. If my sun can set 45 degrees from my position on your globe, why do I only have a 6-mile circumference horizon? I don't know if that was addressed at me or not, because I obviously don't have a globe. I'll come back to that and see if it was addressed to me. I just want to read this comment out for the hell of it. As a truther and philosopher, the pursuit of the knowledge of truth, I actually find that offensive. Well, I would. if I actually thought you had any credibility, but in my eyes you clearly don't. I find it quite humorous actually that you feel the need to shout that various components of reality have nothing to do with science. LOL. If you could see this from my eyes, you would know why I see you as an ignorant little boy trying to chime in at the adults' table when they're discussing serious stuff. Your scientism is rubbish, constantly proving itself wrong again and again, as it should, yet totally ignores the subtle realms and things which can't be measured or recorded or tracked with instruments, because, well, your religion doesn't allow for that. Your rigid, closed-minded religious system is most certainly indoctrination, instructing you in beliefs that you cannot prove for yourself, that have been totally debunked by modern independent researchers with equipment that wasn't even available more than a decade ago, and you're generally appealing to authority, mostly to men in white dresses or lab coats from as much as 100 years ago. You claim my knowledge describes fairy-like beings, yet nothing is further from the truth. Everyone who's done the least research knows who rules this world and whose legions have destroyed so much that was once good. There's plenty of information available. I've even read on my channel Secret of the Ages in 3 parts over a few weeks recently, describing a small portion of the ancient stories from multiple cultures which all collaborate independently with one another. I'll agree that many of the so-called gods and deities are personifications of beings indescribable in ordinary terms, hence why Lucifer is personified in the Statue of Liberty as the light bearer, while Saturn, is the great deceiver because of his rings which give the illusion of being a 3D object in space. Yet there's a real being called Satan, banished to the pits of hell under the earth, who has fooled today's people into believing this Son of God is a Lady Liberty, placed in Queens of all places, feminizing the masculine so that they may destroy all the powerful races of men, while his chosen ones reap their rewards. This bar you talk about is typical doublespeak rooted in all sorts of hidden meanings, but I hardly expect a Scientologist to understand that. You've limited yourself to one school of thought that has been carefully and rigidly defined by your Jesuit masters for hundreds of years. Did you ever once hear about Tesla during your indoctrination years, apart from independent research? Yet your god of relativity, Patent Office clerk Einstein, when asked what it's like to be the smartest man on earth, he responded, "I don't know, you'll have to ask Tesla." But they took all his knowledge and papers when he died and kept it for their own nefarious purposes. You simply have no idea what you have no idea about, but you're defending your religion with great zealousy, and time will tell that I know what I'm talking about, and you will eat your words and feel like a fool. But I doubt you'll ever live long enough in your limited perception of the world. Your world is limited like your mind. Your infinite universe is a fantasy to appease your slave mentality that you live on an insignificant spinning rock in an insignificant arm of an insignificant galaxy, going around an insignificant tiny star for no reason except random chance and freak mutation where nothing ultimately means anything, and life is therefore meaningless. On the infinite planar Earth, the sun is a powerful being here as God's representative, giving life, an amazing miraculous creation in myriad perfection and astonishing forms, created by higher creator beings coming directly from powerful thoughts of the Creator who sent them out to fill the universe with life and beauty and purpose. The infinite physical plane is the divine Mother Earth, the feminine aspect of God. The sun is the light of God, heavily diluted, of course, into life-giving properties in this realm, and is therefore the Father Son of God. We are children, made in their image, completing the Trinity. This is not a religion. This is a fact. You can deny the facts all you like, but reality doesn't care for your denial, and you can live lifetime after lifetime until you reach the point of enlightenment, or you can stop and learn now. Cleanse your body, make it a suitable dwelling place for your higher spirit, so that it too may eventually become a master soul, and you will no longer need to second guess the truth, because you will become a living word of the living God, flowing through your veins and speaking from your mouth. While you are living in disease, you will never know what you will never know. I can only lead you to the truth, but you have to follow the path and do what has to be done, and open your mind to things which aren't necessarily scientific, because that's only one tiny branch of knowledge, not the entire truth. So I guess there's many, many, many more things to be read there. I'm just going to read this one small time. know that I think of them, or now that I think what I think it means. I think the model tells us it sets as 180 degrees. Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Well, it obviously can't because it's a really, really big ball. So we really should never get 12 hours of daylight each. We should get far less. Yeah, the global model just makes absolutely no sense, really, when you think about it. Maybe living at the equator, you could get 12 hours per day. And somehow due to a tilt causing seasons. Yet this tilt, we're talking about, less than 1,000 miles of difference of tilt. Yet, on the global model, they say the Earth is 3 million miles further away from the sun, while the North is in summer. But this tiny little few hundred miles of tilt is going to cause the seasons. It creates a huge problem for the globe model. All these hundreds of responses here, there's one person, Meredith Wilson, says, "Wow, I didn't know y'all was still posting on this thread. Looks like Ross is still too smart for you." I better give that a like. Oh, Paladin says no, he's just persistent in his ignorance. You could call it that, Someone can actually prove me wrong, prove how this global spinning space ball actually works. Like, I know all the hypothetical nonsense with it. You need your gravity, you need your gravity. Yeah, still need some more gravity. Oh, suddenly we need dark matter. Oh, some dark energy, because we repel the moon while we're attracting it. No. The globe is dead. It's not even worth discussing it with. Well, there you go. I've reached the end of the comments. I said DM less. Another very obviously real person gives me a little bit of advice. And he says, "Ross Thatcher, a little bit of advice. If you're trying to convince somebody of your point of view, don't immediately insult them by calling them stupid and moronic, especially when you're defending and moronic and stupid thought." And moronic. Okay. Well, that's true, mate. That's absolutely true. DM, less. And I never immediately did that. With this Craig McNeil, the biggest moronic wanker since the beginning of time, to try and defend the globe Earth, at least back in the days of ancient Greek philosophers, they would sit and discuss things, cordially. And if somebody suggested something that was completely blasphemous, they might be held up against charges, which would then be heard against the court of peer review. But in today's world, the peer review are the masses, and we can just speak on YouTube and say as we will. And so for somebody to suggest that we live on a spinning ball in outer space, if this wasn't indoctrinated into our minds for generations upon generations upon generations with zero evidence of the proof, this is just something we're told. The first evidence we ever had was back in the early 70s, late 60s, when they started allegedly sending rockets into space and going to the moon, all of which has been disproven, all of which has been clearly shown how they faked this blue marble photo through a round window where everything else was blacked out. It's all been disproven, so if somebody wants to stand up and offer proof for their belief, And they'd better bloody well bring something pretty strong and coherent rather than hearsay of things people did hundreds of years ago or decades ago, and show something today with modern, provable evidence. Like, what do they say today? We've got the equatorial mount. And the equatorial mount is convincing proof that we live on a spinning ball, because at night time it points down into the ground. That is not convincing proof at all. The equatorial mount has never been proven to show how it actually tracks one single celestial object on a single axis of rotation. It has to be constantly adjusted for the arc it makes, because they're going in the arc around Polaris. And if you're trying to track the sun, once again you've got the same problem, because even Wolfie on his big channel thing where he tried to show how this equatorial mount proves the spinning ball model, he doesn't even track the sun. All he does is he leaves it open as it spins around through the night, and you see light going around in his room, and then it's pointing back down again. He never once actually takes it outside and actually tracks the sun. I've exposed him that many times. I can't believe that people are still following his web of lies. You're an absolute dog liar, Wolfie. Wolfie 6020. Yeah? Absolute dog cunt liar. And I never say that to a person unless they truly deserve it. You're the worst of the worst. You've got all your thousands of followers, and yet when one person dares stand up and prove you wrong, because I get attacked by all your followers, with the most filthy, disgusting language you could imagine. So yeah, sometimes I fight fire with fire. I'll do that. If that's what I'm dealing with, I'm dealing with this lowest common denominator like most of your followers are, yeah, I will join in that same sort of language. What did you do? You just found one of my videos. I made one drunken Sunday afternoon while I'm outside, clearly videoing some poor innocent traveller getting harassed by the filth. So you use that as an excuse. I saw what you did, you can't let me by. Yeah. I'm blocking you now. That's pathetic. That's absolutely pathetic. You were just looking for any excuse you could find, because you can't handle the truth. And you know it. So, I know I skimmed past many comments in that one. This one was pinned at one stage. I think I went through all of them too. Yeah, I've been through them. I guess I'm running out of comments for the moment. I could probably look through some of my older ones and see one or two worth responding to, but I don't know. Maybe I'll start up another live chat shortly if I find something worth doing. All I can say is find the truth for yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Believe what you know in your heart is right. Do you feel yourself on a spinning ball? Do you feel you've been deceived by people saying it's curved and that there's curvature out there? When they show these false images of, say, like Lake Pontchartrain, with things diminishing into the distance, creating this illusion of curvature. Did you ever actually plot that out and see how big that ball would be? The Earth is supposed to be some 25,000 miles in circumference in the heliocentric belief. A planet that size would be barely 5,000 miles, if that. So don't fall for bullshit. Don't fall for illusions. Don't fall for delusions. Understand that perspective is a trick of the eye. We can't necessarily understand it all in one day. It can take many years of observation, contemplation, and really getting to the bottom of the truth. That's all you can really do. It's just keep looking, keep searching, keep asking questions, and don't accept anything as gospel. Anything. You know, don't accept anything I say as gospel you know, for one thing. I mean, I can tell you, I'm telling you the truth as I know it at the time. But the truth often, just like science, is always evolving. It's always evolving. It's just how it should be. You know, what we understand one day is basically a stepping stone into the next level of knowledge. And then we'll say, so that was partly true. And now it opens up another door to this next truth. And we go from one to another, until eventually we reach a place of enlightenment where we no longer have to second guess. We can just sit back and laugh and have a beer. Cheers. Peace, love, and abundance to all. See you next time. I don't think that was the button I wanted to press. That wasn't the button I meant to press. Still filming, I think. Maybe. Yes, my lovely lady was sitting there above it. I will just read that one. Tilt means nothing at the equinox. It still can't be 180 degrees removed. I agree. It can't. We're too low to the ground. Or at the equator even. Yeah. We're too low to the ground. We're too small. We'd be lucky to get 8 hours a day on a spinning ball, really. Maybe a bit more in the summer, depending on your tilt. Someone was trying to tell me that the other day, looking at the blue marble, actually. One of these blue marble pictures where it just showed the USA. No, hang on, no, this one was the Africa and Arabia, the original blue marble. But no sign of India. No sign of all these other continents that when you look at it on the Mercator projection should have been in daylight. No sign whatsoever of them. They show this tiny little circle on the Mercator projection where all these other continents would be in daylight as well. Now the only way they can all be in daylight at the same time is if they're all on the same side of the earth facing the sun. So that blue marble picture is obviously fake, because you'd have to be able to see at least a scrap of evidence of all these other continents all facing the sun at the same time. No, only flat earth makes sense. This time I'll say goodbye. Take care. I'll see you around.